Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Deku was broken hero part 1. If you guys enjoy this what if and want to see part 2, comment down below and let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content and leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also share this video with your friends and check out the description in my playlist. The author of the story, the 𝗵𝗃𝗃 from WhatIf. So let's start the video. It was the day of the final exam. Izuku thought things would finally be different at UA, but things weren't. Things never got better in regards to school. Izuku groaned as he hated getting up in the morning for the class, since he knew he would get glared at by his teacher or blamed for things when Bakugo started SHT. It was the normal thing he suffered throughout his life. He knew the final exam today and he felt like SHT today. His body was sore because Recovery Girl refused to heal him a few days ago due to injuries he received in training. She was taking the policy that Izuku was getting injured too much and he needed to learn that he couldn't rely on her for everything. He was paired up with Bakugo during that training, which is always he only receives injuries on the days he's paired up with Bakugo, since it gives Bakugo a perfect excuse to go too far but not get punished for it. Yes, that is right. Bakugo and not Kaken. Izuku only calls Bakugo Kaken in front of others since he wants to keep up appearances, but after he tried to kill him in the battle trial at the start of the year, Izuku stopped calling him Kaken in his mind and only did it for others. God, I wish I could talk to Dad more, but the time difference makes it so strong. Izuku thought. Now don't get Izuku wrong. He loves his mother, but she is a helicopter parent. She became like that while he was quirkless, and the divorce happened with his father since his mother didn't want to move to America when he got a far better paying job. She received main custody for Izuku in the divorce. Though his father was smart and slipped in a section that she agreed to that Izuku could request the guardianship to change to either parent if he desired to. Izuku could request legally to have his custody given to his father, and she couldn't fight it due to the contract she signed in the divorce, since she never thought Izuku would use it since he took after so much. The main reason Izuku never used it was because he wouldn't be able to go to UA anymore if he went to America with his father, which was his dream. Soon, Izuku finished getting dressed and went down to eat breakfast in the dorms. UA made the dorms after the USJ in this AU. As such, they already live on campus. Izuku saw Shouto in the kitchen and helped him finish the breakfast. Shouto knew a good portion of Izuku's past, unlike all of his other friends. They shared their pain. Izuku's pain was from his childhood and formerly being quirkless, while Shouto's pain was from the abuse of his father, though 𝗵𝗃𝗃 was getting better and the family was healing since the sports festival. Shouto's mother had even returned home, and 𝗵𝗃𝗃 created another section onto the house so she could go into it and not have him around. This helped the family heal a lot since it showed he really wanted to improve. Shouto even came out to his family that he was gay, which 𝗵𝗃𝗃 accepted, but it was rough for a short period, but he accepted in the end. Everyone had come down for breakfast and Bakugo had yelled about shitty Deku cooking food, and it likely wasn't even good. As he always did. Shouto gave him a glare, but no one else did anything. Shouto knew that Izuku didn't want him doing much, but Izuku wished some of his classmates would tell Bakugo to stop or to shut up with some of the things he does. Soon everyone made it to the classroom and they were told that they had the physical portion of the final exam, which they all knew about and Izuku was dreading, since as it stands they were pairing Izuku up with Bakugo a large number of times that pointed towards them doing it here. They are trying to use me to improve his communication skills and ability to use teamwork, and it's compromising my education. Izuku thought angrily. Shouto just rubbed his back, since they would always confide in each other and help each other emotionally. They weren't dating and it was all platonic when they cuddled or hugged each other. They just became really great emotional support for each other due to knowing each other's pasts. Shouto even knows about One for All without 𝗲𝗋𝗃 knowing that he knows. Izuku still didn't agree with 𝗲𝗋𝗃 forbidding him from telling others, and after telling Shouto everything else he told him about One for All as well, since he knew so much already. If you're going all in, might as well go all in. Izuku thought that day as he told the truth of his quirk, which Shouto has come to dislike 𝗲𝗋𝗃 a bit. Soon, the physical portion of the exam was upon them. They all changed in their outfits and soon found themselves in the control room of the cityscape. They were thinking they would be fighting robots, but Izuku had a bad feeling about today and knew it would likely be something else. Soon all of the teachers came in and it was announced they would be fighting the teachers and not robots. Izuku's stomach dropped at this statement and was just ready for a world of trouble to come his way. Izuku didn't trust teachers, even his homeroom teacher who threw himself at the villains at the 𝗬𝗧𝗵𝗃 didn't have his trust due to these actions throughout the semester since he never stopped Bakugo from harming Izuku. He never even stopped Bakugo from setting off small explosions in the classroom even though there were rules against it. Yet, Izuku would bet that if he did something similar then he would get in trouble, though he knew not to test that theory. It would be illogical for us to go solo against a teacher, so I'm betting it will be pairs or more against a teacher. This means that I will likely be paired with Bakugo. Izuku thought with a small curse. Welp, there's my curse word for the day. Izuku thought as well. Izuku listened to the teachers talking, and what do you know? He and Bakugo were paired with each other and against guess who? You know it. All Might. This wasn't going to be fun since there was no way they could directly win a fight even if they worked together. Also, Bakugo would not want to run away either, which means teamwork isn't likely to happen, though he has to try or else they will yell at him. Izuku really hated his luck with teachers and schools. It's hit the point where Izuku just wanted to graduate and become a hero since he could decide 90% of the time if he worked with Bakugo or not. After the teachers talked a bit longer, he knew his fate was sealed even if he tried to get reassigned. As such, that is how Izuku found himself watching the other students of his class go through their exams. Izuku had tried to come up with an initial plan since they had time to talk, but Bakugo just rejected it, so Izuku kept silent. After about 5 minutes it was time for their bus to arrive and take them to their test site. All exams were starting roughly 5 minutes after each other and theirs was last to start. Todoroki's was the first to start and would be the first to likely finish at the rate they were going. As Izuku, Bakugo, and All Might rode the bus to the exam site, they sat in silence since it would be illogical to try and make a plan on the bus, and Izuku knew that Bakugo would still reject it, but he would try again before they entered the gate. Within the next 3 or so minutes they found themselves at the exam gates. It was here that Izuku decided to try and talk to Bakugo. Izuku called out to Bakugo by using the nickname since he didn't want to give himself up. Kaken, we need to create a plan before we go in. There is no way we could directly beat him, Izuku stated. Before the exam had even started, Bakugo turned on Izuku and had smacked him onto the ground with the side of his gauntlet. The same gauntlet that he used at the start of the year to almost murder Izuku. Izuku could feel some blood on his face and knew he got a cut and a bruise, yet what do you know? The teachers didn't stop the exam or anything even though Bakugo had just assaulted Izuku, which is a crime. It was not in a combat-approved area, nor had the test started, and Bakugo had attacked Izuku and the teachers were not stopping the exam. Knowing this, something in Izuku's mind slightly cracked a bit. They have cameras on these door areas since I saw it in the control room, so they know it happened, yet nothing happens to him, Izuku thought. Izuku just got up and Bakugo just angrily ordered Izuku to stop talking and that he didn't need his help. Izuku tried to reason a bit more even after getting hit, but Bakugo just declared that he was going to fight and beat All Might without the help of the damn Deku. The test had started already and they were arguing as they entered the city, but before they could keep talking they felt a large blast of air that devastated the surrounding area as all of the windows shattered and the buildings moved slightly. A bit stronger and buildings would have gone down. All Might announces that he was there to cause fear. All Might was putting pressure on them with his appearance. Izuku tried to get Bakugo to work together, but Bakugo refused and said there's no chance of them working together, and Bakugo refused to win by running away. Bakugo went and attacked All Might and Izuku had to follow because there was no way Bakugo would win by himself. After fighting a bit, Izuku decided that they would have no chance of escaping and went with the escape plan. They were going to win regardless, and Bakugo had already attacked Izuku once before and his refusal to work together would lead to both of their deaths in the field. As such, Izuku made the logical decision to leave. They can't blame him for escaping from an opponent that is far too strong to fight and getting back up. They shouldn't have the right to blame him for leaving Bakugo since he had attacked Izuku even before the exam started, which would mean that Bakugo wasn't his ally anymore on the field and would be an enemy since he attacked a fellow hero, and under the hero laws, which Izuku knows quite well, Bakugo would be considered an enemy combatant. As such, that is what Izuku Midoriya did. He powered up full cowl and dashed off into the alleyways and went for the gate to escape. All Might noticed that his protégé had disappeared and called out for him, taunting him. Now hero. You wouldn't leave behind your ally, would you? All Might asked. Not my ally in the eyes of hero law, since he attacked a fellow hero. Nor am I realistically going to die on the field due to another person's refusal to work together to overcome the enemy. Izuku thought. Then he heard it. All Might brought up the sludge villain incident. Oh, young hero, aren't you going to save young Bakugo just like you did before in the sludge incident? You wouldn't leave him alone, right? All Might stated, trying to invoke Izuku to come out, but he didn't. Izuku was nearing the gate. All Might dropped Bakugo quickly and got ready to rush to the gate when the sound went off. Winners Izuku Midoriya and Katsuki Bakugo due to passing the gate, ranged out Nizu's pre-recorded voice. Everyone was shocked that Izuku had left Bakugo there to fight alone. Many thoughts passed All Might's mind, but one was, if he chooses the wrong person to wield one for all, and these words that he would utter would break the last bit of faith Izuku had. All Might carried Bakugo, who was now out of it, to the gate quickly and saw Izuku Midoriya, his protégé, there heading away from the gate. He wasn't even going to check on Bakugo. Young Midoriya. Why did you leave Bakugo back there? All Might asked Izuku in an annoyed tone. Izuku just apologized since he saw All Might was, and All Might just shook his head and stated maybe he chose wrong as he walked by, not really thinking or realizing he said it out loud. Izuku's eyes widened at that statement, but All Might had already walked past him. Izuku just put his head down and got on the bus, and they soon returned to the school. Izuku did not speak at all to All Might, and Bakugo was still out of it. When they returned, they found Aizawa waiting for them. Aizawa looked, which Izuku wasn't surprised. He knew he was about to be yelled out for leaving Bakugo there, but he couldn't bring himself to care. Aizawa demanded to know why he thought it was a good idea to leave Bakugo back there. Izuku simply stated that there was no way to overcome All Might and teamwork wasn't working. Aizawa looked at him and told him that he should have worked harder on getting the teamwork to happen, which made Izuku angry inside since he was willing to work together and Bakugo wasn't. Though just as always, it was Izuku's fault and never Bakugo's. This was why he didn't trust teachers, and he knew he couldn't trust All Might either with how All Might was looking at him. He was looking at Izuku as if he was a disappointment. Izuku just bowed his head and promised to do better next time. Aizawa stated that he better, or else there won't be another time after that, which Izuku knew was a threat to kick him out of the hero course. Izuku's faith in UA was gone completely, and he no longer had any trust in any of the teachers here, and not even All Might, who was meant to be his MSTR. Izuku returned to the control room with everyone else and saw that Shouto was in there with everyone. He walked over and rubbed Izuku's back to help calm him down. They both knew they would have a talk later after the exam was done, which would be soon. Everyone returned, and even Bakugo did, who was just glaring at Izuku for the way he passed. He was screaming out it wasn't a true winner and that the shitty Deku screwed his test up and he wanted another go. Aizawa just told Bakugo to shut up. He only gets scolded for being too loud, yet doesn't get reprimanded for his assault or refusal to work together. Izuku thought bitterly. He didn't know if he could keep doing this. He was breaking down inside. Soon everyone had finished their exams and they all gathered. The students were dismissed and allowed to go back to the dorms. Izuku got changed quickly and went straight for Shout's dorm since he needed to vent. He needed to talk to someone and let these emotions out. Shouto had already reached his dorm and opened the door within seconds of the door being knocked on since he knew Izuku would be arriving. Shouto opened the door and silently welcomed Izuku into the room. Izuku just walked into the room without saying anything and sat down on the futon that was on the floor. He laid down on his back after a few seconds while Shouto just came and settled right next to him without saying anything. Izuku liked the warmth of Shouto due to his quirk. It was so nice to feel in moments like this. After a few minutes, Shouto broke the silence. "Are you okay, Aizu?" he asked. Izuku went to answer, but he didn't know what to say. He wanted to say yes and hide his emotions, but he knew he wasn't okay. Izuku just gripped Shouto's offered hand that he presented since it was from his warm side, since he knew it helped Izuku calm down and let him gather his thoughts. After thinking for a bit more he spoke and the words shocked Shouto. "I think I hate Bakugo and I think I hate UA and the teachers," Izuku spoke and Shouto's eyes widened. This was Izuku Midoriya, the kindest boy on earth, and he just stated he hated Bakugo, and worst, he said he hated the top hero school and its staff. This has to do with the final exam today, doesn't it? I know something happened due to how you acted, but I was already in mine when yours started and only got to see the ending portion of it, Shouto stated. Izuku nodded his head at the question and was silent for a few moments. "We passed the final exam today because I ran across the exit and won for us that way. You know, Bakugo didn't like that at all. Though that is normal. What really happened was that he assaulted me before the exam even started. It's how I have this bruise on my face and busted lip. He struck me with his gauntlet before the exam was even called because I was trying to get him to come up with a plan with me. He refused and hit me. He told me to shut up," Izuku stated, and Shouto's eyes grew cold at what he was hearing. "Why didn't the staff stop the exam? There were cameras," he stated, and Izuku responded he didn't know. "I think they are using me as a tool to make Bakugo better but throwing my education to the side. It's the same with how he never got punished for the attempted murder at the start of the year, nor any time he uses his quirk in the classroom to make small sparks. He does that to cause fear in me since he used his quirk on me so much in our past that it makes me terrified due to PTSD. Then they pair us up for almost all training lately and then this exam. I think they want him to get better at teamwork but are using me since he has clear problems with me," Izuku stated. Shouto nodded his head and thought a bit more. Izuku explained the situation on how he ran away because he knew that was the only way to win and how All Might tried to provoke him. Izuku also told Shouto what All Might stated in regards to One for All and him being the successor. This outright Shouto off to the max. The more he learned, the more he was disgusted with UA. They have ignored the problems that were right in front of their face and did nothing. They have only made them worse. Then Izuku said the thought on his mind, "I don't know if I can keep being a hero. My own MSTR has no faith in me nor will help me. I've learned more from others or myself than from him. UA is just like my old schools and won't stop the bullying that clearly happens right in front of them and is harming my education," Izuku stated. This shocked Shouto. Then Shouto thought of something. He remembered something from a while back before UA that his father mentioned. He brought it up to Izuku and said it. "Why not leave UA and we can go to another school in Japan or even America?" stated Shouto. Izuku's eyes widened at that suggestion and he was dumbfounded. Izuku was stunned to silence. He was dumbfounded and didn't really know what to say or what to think since he must have really misheard his best damn friend wrong. "Right. Did you just suggest we go to another hero school in Japan or even in America? Would your father even let you?" Izuku asked. Izuku was really doubtful of Endeavor letting Shouto just drop out of UA and go to America, which honestly sounded so good since he could live with his father since he lives on the East Coast, since that is where the #1 hero school of America is. It's located in the state of New Jersey in open land outside of Philadelphia City that was located in Philadelphia, which was located in Pennsylvania. The reason it's located in that state is due to the location of a lot of the major cities on the East Coast. Philadelphia is located roughly 2 hours away from Washington, D.C., the capital of America, and roughly 1.5 hours from New York, which is the busiest city in America. There is also a lot of other important cities and locations on the East Coast as well. As such, the #1 hero school started in New Jersey near Philadelphia since it's a major business city on the East Coast. Since they were allowed to build the school in the open forest area near the coast that used to be a state forest, and they would be positioned to react to a lot of problems. After Izuku asked the question, Shouto thought for a few seconds before he talked. "It would take some convincing, but you said your father lives near the #1 hero school in America, right?" he asked, and Izuku confirmed it. "My father had considered sending me to that school before UA, however I told him to just send me to UA since All Might went here and I didn't want to be away from my sister and brothers. However, I don't really care to go here anymore and he would likely be willing to send me there if your father would let me stay in his home and if I said I was going with you." We would need to explain your past and what UA's been doing, since he would see it as a failure that could spread to me as well. If they would compromise one student's education, what is to say they won't do it to mine as well? That is the argument we will use to convince him, but we will need your father to agree to it as well. So what do you say, Izu? Shouto asked Izuku. Izuku didn't know what to do. He didn't consider it as an option since he has always been set on UA, but the recent events have broken his longing to stay here anymore. Even All Might has failed him, and now the offer sounded so tempting. How would we transfer without them finding us? All Might won't let me go far due to one for all he would try to track me down. Izuku stated as a statement and question really at the same time. All Might was questioning Izuku's ability to be the 9th user of One for All currently, and he wouldn't let Izuku just disappear so easily. Shouto thought about that, and they would need to ask 𝗵𝗃 to help on that matter. By right, they can request the student files to be sent to the parents directly so that the students and family could do the transfer work themselves. UA might stall Izuku's paperwork and try to figure out where he is going, and they might need to apply pressure without them finding out they would be living with Izuku's father, since that would kind of pinpoint the school they would be going to. We would need to ask my father to help and apply pressure. You would also need your father to help, and he couldn't directly receive it since UA would take a good guess of where we would be going if they knew he lived that close to the #1 school in America. Shouto stated. Izuku nodded his head. They decided to go talk to 𝗵𝗃 since Shouto knew he was at the house today, since today was his day off. He texted his father that he needed to talk the moment he got home and it was important. 𝗵𝗃 responded and said he would be at the house waiting and doing paperwork. The two boys got up and grabbed a few things and headed off. They found a teacher and requested permission to leave campus. They had to get it since they lived on campus now, which complicated this. Luckily it was midnight that was in the staff room currently, and they didn't run into any of the other teachers. She granted the request since they told her they were going to run to Todoroki's home and be back before curfew. Due to the fact that there was still a good amount of daylight out, she granted the request and didn't question it since she knew the two of them were close friends and it wouldn't be strange for Izuku to go to his close friend's house. As such, that is how they found themselves heading to the Todoroki house. Izuku texted his dad and told him that he would likely call him in the next hour or two, and it was going to be important and he wasn't going to tell mom about it currently and wanted to speak with him first. Hisashi texted back and told him he would be waiting for the call. He had no meetings planned today and would be free to take it since he was just in his office working from home today. Izuku was glad for that since he didn't know how long the meeting with 𝗵𝗃 would take. After about a 15-minute train ride they were at the Todoroki home since it was located in Mizudafu just like UA was. Izuku knew that Shouto described it as a traditional Japanese house, but it was still shocking to see such an old-style home in this city. Izuku knew that Shouto described it as a traditional Japanese house, but it was still shocking to see such an old-style home in this city. 𝗵𝗃 really wanted to show off since these types of houses were more symbols of wealth or power since they are costly to make nowadays. Izuku thought. They walked up to the door and just entered. Shouto called that he was home and Izuku announced his presence and apologized for intruding. Shouto's sister welcomed them and was happy that Shouto brought a friend home since this was the first time. Natsuo and Toya both were home as well and popped their heads out at the words that Shouto brought a friend home. After a few seconds, 𝗵𝗃 appeared and Izuku saw them tense a bit since they didn't know how 𝗵𝗃 would react to Shouto's friend. Izuku just grinned and talked to 𝗵𝗃 without fear. "Hello, sir. It's been a while," Izuku said with a bright smile. Out of nowhere Shouto pulled out sunglasses from nowhere and muttered about Izuku being too bright. "Where do you hide those?" Izuku asked, and Shouto just shot back. "I don't know. Where do you hide the notebook of quirks and the weaknesses you have on like every single person you meet?" Shouto asked as Izuku just somehow made a notebook appear, which caused everyone to be confused. "Touchy now, aren't we?" Izuku stated with a small smirk. 𝗵𝗃 just shook his head at the display. "Hello, Midoriya. What do I owe the pleasure of you being here?" 𝗵𝗃 stated. The situation between them was a bit tense from last time, but 𝗵𝗃 was playing nice. Shouto just spoke up instead. It's about the matter I want to speak about. We need your help. We both want to quit UA. Shouto stated. Everyone's eyes just widened and 𝗵𝗲𝗏 choked on the tea he was drinking as he asked what the hell they were talking about. Shouchan, you need to learn to provide more details for stuff like that, Izuku said as he shook his head. What he means is that we need your help in transferring schools. It's a toxic learning environment for us and we are wanting to talk to you about helping us transfer to the #1 hero school in America since you suggested it once to Shouto before UA started. Izuku stated. 𝗵𝗏𝗏 was still a bit confused on what brought this on and how UA was toxic. He just guided the two boys into his office and had them all sit down. The other siblings joined. Shouto and Izuku then started to explain everything. They talked about how UA was toxic to their learning and that the school was allowing assault and bullying to happen right in front of their teachers without them doing anything about it. Today, for example, before the final exam, I was assaulted by my teammate where there were cameras and they did nothing about it. There was a staff member present in the control room opening the gates and everything, so they had to see it. It's also on camera and yet they didn't talk to the stupid or end the exam right when he assaulted me. They just made the exam start. They are also always putting me with this said student who has issues with teamwork with almost anyone, but he has the most issues with me since he grew up with me. I don't know what they think is happening, but they are destroying my education, and I've also been refused treatment by 𝗵𝗃𝗏𝗺 since I'm not meant to rely on her for everything. Though most injuries I sustain now are from spars or fights with the said student in combat lessons. However, I never receive anything serious or needing 𝗵𝗃𝗏𝗺 from anyone else. Not even Shouchan, since we can easily fight each other without causing wounds bigger than small cuts. Izuku stated. 𝗵𝗏𝗏 did ask about this student and Izuku's history. Izuku tensed a bit, but Shouchan put his hand on his back and rubbed it. If my father has any issues with your past, then he can kick the bucket, Shouchan stated in front of everyone, and their eyes widened at his words right in front of 𝗵𝗏𝗏. 𝗵𝗏𝗏 just raised an eyebrow and then heard Izuku's exploitation. Izuku explained how he was classified as quirkless at the age of 4 and the fake story of how he got his quirk. He talked about all the bullying and what the teachers did in his past. Everyone's eyes widened. I'll admit I didn't look favorably on quirkless people and really still don't, but even that is too far on what they did to you, 𝗵𝗏𝗏 stated. Everyone was shocked at his view. At least you admit you don't look favorably instead of hiding it behind lies and looks of pity, Izuku stated. 𝗵𝗏𝗏 just shrugged. Can't expect me to make that drastic of a change that soon. However, what they did was too far, especially since I realized my screw-ups with my family. I realize how wrong I was and they are wrong as well. You nor my children deserved what has happened to you guys. 𝗵𝗏𝗏 stated with shame. Shouto explained that Izuku and himself are rivals and that they use each other to keep pushing each other forward. 𝗵𝗏𝗏 knew this was true since it was Izuku that got Shouto to use his fire side again. That is why we want to transfer to America's #1 hero school, but there is a bit of issue, 𝗬𝗏𝗏. Shouto stated. Everyone looked confused on how that would be an issue since he shouldn't be involved in this. Let me explain. 𝗬𝗏𝗏 is my mentor. He's also allowed all of this to happen in front of him and didn't do anything, and he has made a comment about regretting picking me to train. We believe he will try to stop my transfer since I know a lot about him and would try to find me if I were to transfer. As such, we need to keep UA from finding out what school we go to, where we need your help if you allow Shouto to transfer with me since my father lives near the #1 school in America. Izuku said, and he explained the custody issues and that he can get his dad to take his custody easily and get transferred, but they needed to hide where he was going. 𝗵𝗏𝗏 thought about the matters for a while. It's true that he did suggest going to the #1 school in America at one point, since that school is arguably better than UA on scale and teaching, since they have far more resources since they deal with stronger villains in America. 𝗵𝗏𝗏 would also know where his son would be since he would be staying at a friend's home if Midoriya's father accepted it. He did have concerns about UA teaching if they were allowing such things as assault and bullying to go on right in front of them without doing anything, and the fact that the young man has survived through so much and could keep moving forward impressed 𝗵𝗏𝗏, though he wouldn't admit it. After a bit more discussion, he decided that he would agree with this but would need to talk to Midoriya's father first if he would even transfer his son in the first place. Otherwise, 𝗵𝗏𝗏 would just send his son to another school in Japan instead of America. Midoriya, call your father so I to be important, and he wasn't going to tell mom about it currently and wanted to speak with him first. Hisashi texted back and told him he would be waiting for the call. He had no meetings planned today and would be free to take it since he was just in his office working from home today. Izuku was glad for that since he didn't know how long the meeting with 𝗵𝗃𝗏 would take. After about a 15-minute train ride they were at the Todoroki home since it was located in 𝗵𝗃𝗏 just like 𝗬𝗃 was. Izuku knew that Shouto described it as a traditional Japanese house, but it was still shocking to see such an old-style home in this city. Izuku knew that Shouto described it as a traditional Japanese house, but it was still shocking to see such an old-style home in this city. 𝗵𝗃𝗏 really wanted to show off since these types of houses were more symbols of wealth or power since they are costly to make nowadays. Izuku thought. They walked up to the door and just entered. Shouto called that he was home and Izuku announced his presence and apologized for intruding. Shouto's sister welcomed them and was happy that Shouto brought a friend home since this was the first time. Natsuo and Toya both were home as well and popped their heads out at the words that Shouto brought a friend home. After a few seconds, 𝗵𝗃𝗏 appeared and Izuku saw them tense a bit since they didn't know how 𝗵𝗃𝗏 would react to Shouto's friend. Izuku just grinned and talked to 𝗵𝗃𝗏 without fear. "Hello, sir. It's been a while," Izuku said with a bright smile. Out of nowhere Shouto pulled out sunglasses from nowhere and muttered about Izuku being too bright. "Where do you hide those?" Izuku asked and Shouto just shot back. "I don't know. Where do you hide the notebook of quirks and the weaknesses you have on like every single person you meet?" Shouto asked as Izuku just somehow made a notebook appear which caused everyone to be confused. "Touchy now aren't we?" Izuku stated with a small smirk. 𝗵𝗃𝗏 just shook his head at the display. "Hello, Midoriya. What do I owe the pleasure of you being here?" 𝗵𝗃𝗏 stated. The situation between them was a bit tense from last time, but 𝗵𝗃𝗏 was playing nice. Shouto just spoke up instead. It's about the matter I want to speak about. We need your help. We both want to quit 𝗬𝗃𝗏. Shouto stated. Everyone's eyes just widened and 𝗵𝗃𝗏 choked on the tea he was drinking as he asked what the hell they were talking about. "Shouchan, you need to learn to provide more details for stuff like that," Izuku said as he shook his head. "What he means is that we need your help in transferring schools. It's a toxic learning environment for us and we are wanting to talk to you about helping us transfer to the #1 hero school in America since you suggested it once to Shouto before 𝗬𝗃𝗏 started," Izuku stated. 𝗵𝗃𝗏 was still a bit confused on what brought this on and how 𝗬𝗃𝗏 was toxic. He just guided the two boys into his office and had them all sit down. The other siblings joined. Shouto and Izuku then started to explain everything. They talked about how 𝗬𝗃𝗏 was toxic to their learning and that the school was allowing assault and bullying to happen right in front of their teachers without them doing anything about it. "Today, for example, before the final exam I was assaulted by my teammate where there were cameras and they did nothing about it. There was a staff member present in the control room opening the gates and everything so they had to see it. It's also on camera and yet they didn't talk to the stupid or end the exam right when he assaulted me. They just made the exam start. They are also always putting me with this said student who has issues with teamwork with almost anyone, but he has the most issues with me since he grew up with me. I don't know what they think is happening, but they are destroying my education and I've also been refused treatment by Recovery Girl since I'm not meant to rely on her for everything. Though most injuries I sustain now are from spars or fights with the said student in combat lessons. However, I never receive anything serious or needing Recovery Girl from anyone else. Not even Shouchan, since we can easily fight each other without causing wounds bigger than small cuts," Izuku stated. 𝗵𝗃𝗏 did ask about this student and Izuku's history. Izuku tensed a bit but Shouchan put his hand on his back and rubbed it. "If my father has any issues with your past then he can kick the bucket," Shouchan stated in front of everyone and their eyes widened at his words right in front of 𝗵𝗃𝗏. 𝗵𝗃𝗏 just raised an eyebrow and then heard Izuku's exploitation. Izuku explained how he was classified as quirkless at the age of 4 and the fake story of how he got his quirk. He talked about all the bullying and what the teachers did in his past. Everyone's eyes widened. "I'll admit I didn't look favorably on quirkless people and really still don't, but even that is too far on what they did to you," 𝗵𝗃𝗏 stated. Everyone was shocked at his view. At least you admit you don't look favorably instead of hiding it behind lies and looks of pity, Izuku stated. 𝗵𝗃𝗏 just shrugged. Can't expect me to make that drastic of a change that soon. However, what they did was too far, especially since I realized my screw-ups with my family. I realize how wrong I was, and they are wrong as well. You nor my children deserved what has happened to you guys. 𝗵𝗃𝗏 stated with shame. Shouto explained that Izuku and himself are rivals and that they use each other to keep pushing each other forward. 𝗵𝗃𝗏 knew this was true since it was Izuku that got Shouto to use his fire side again. That is why we want to transfer to America's #1 hero school, but there is a bit of issue, 𝗬𝗍𝗍. Shouto stated. Everyone looked confused on how that would be an issue since he shouldn't be involved in this. Let me explain. 𝗬𝗍𝗍 is my mentor. He's also allowed all of this to happen in front of him and didn't do anything, and he has made a comment about regretting picking me to train. We believe he will try to stop my transfer since I know a lot about him and would try to find me if I were to transfer. As such, we need to keep UA from finding out what school we go to, where we need your help if you allow Shouto to transfer with me since my father lives near the #1 school in America. Izuku said, and he explained the custody issues and that he can get his dad to take his custody easily and get transferred, but they needed to hide where he was going. 𝗵𝗃𝗏 thought about the matters for a while. It's true that he did suggest going to the #1 school in America at one point since that school is arguably better than UA on scale and teaching since they have far more resources since they deal with stronger villains in America. 𝗵𝗃𝗏 would also know where his son would be since he would be staying at a friend's home if Midoriya's father accepted it. He did have concerns about UA teaching if they were allowing such things as assault and bullying to go on right in front of them without doing anything, and the fact that the young man has survived through so much and could keep moving forward impressed 𝗵𝗃𝗏, though he wouldn't admit it. After a bit more discussion he decided that he would agree with this but would need to talk to Midoriya's father first if he would even transfer his son in the first place. Otherwise, 𝗵𝗃𝗏 would just send his son to another school in Japan instead of America. Midoriya, call your father so I can speak to him. If he won't agree with this, then I will just send Shouto to another school in Japan instead of America, but if he agrees I'll help with all of this. 𝗵𝗃𝗏 stated. Though, he didn't mention to anyone that he was glad to help, and the biggest drive was him being petty. It would feel good to help 𝗬𝗍𝗍's protege escape 𝗬𝗍𝗍, so 𝗵𝗃𝗏 was incentivized to help out through that. He was improving to be a better man, but it didn't mean he couldn't be petty towards 𝗬𝗍𝗍. Izuku nodded his head and made the call to his father. After a few rings, his father answered. Hello, son. His father called. 𝗵𝗃𝗏 tensed a bit, which everyone noticed. Does he know Dad? Izuku thought as he talked to his father. Hey, Dad, I have some questions. Could I come live with you if I transferred to the #1 hero school in America that is near you? Izuku asked. The line was silent before his father talked again. Izuku, who hurt you? Hisashi asked, and Izuku tensed. Damn, Dad was always good reading between the lines. Izuku thought. What makes you say that? Izuku said with a stutter. I know you, son. You wouldn't stop your dream of going to UA if someone didn't really screw you over or hurt you enough to kill that. Even when you were still quirkless you wanted to go. So again, who hurt you? Hisashi asked. 𝗵𝗃𝗏 just grabbed the phone and started to speak. Hello, Hisashi, it's been a while. 𝗵𝗃𝗏 spoke and everyone was shocked. They did know each other. 𝗵𝗃𝗏, it's been years since we last talked. You better not have hurt my son. You know how I am, and I will destroy your career and leak some notes about you. Hisashi stated. Damn. He just threatened the #2 hero. Everyone thought at the same time. No, Hisashi, I didn't harm your son. He came to me for help on some matters with my own son. They are close friends and are wanting to go to America together to attend the #1 school there. UA is the one that hurt your son, 𝗵𝗃𝗏 stated. He then explained what he knew from what he was told, and Hisashi wasn't pleased. He wasn't pleased with it all. Soon 𝗵𝗃𝗏 put the phone on speaker so everyone could hear better instead of the more muffled voice. Son. I will gladly take you and your friend. We can have your custody to me within the hour, though what do you want to tell your mother about this, since she never wanted to leave Japan and we are divorced, Hisashi stated. Izuku then explained to his dad how his mother has acted since the divorce, and Hisashi was sad that his son didn't call him about it. Son, you should have told me and I would have tried to help, Hisashi stated, and Izuku knew he was right and just apologized. I'm just glad you are calling now. I'll deal with your mother. I'll explain you're wanting to attend the hero school here due to some issues at UA, and the school here hasn't been attacked, so it should make it easier for her. Though I expect you will need to text her a lot to make her happy, but you will have to deal with that. NG, I'm faxing a paper to you which had my signature on it. It grants you temporary rights to pull my son out of UA and take his transfer paperwork and everything else, so they can't stop you from pulling them both out. I'll start getting things set up over here for the boys. The principal of the school owes me a lot of favors due to my company. I can have a test set up for the boys to prove their worth to get into the hero course, and if they do well enough they get accepted. If not, we send them to another hero school, but I don't have doubts about the boys' ability to get in, Hisashi stated. Izuku also told his father about All Might likely trying to search for Izuku since he is or was his protege, but Izuku couldn't really see him like that after all of this. All Might only really taught him how to do physical training. He learned everything else from Gran Torino, and now All Might was judging Izuku for one thing and was questioning his entire choice. It showed how little faith he had in Izuku and broke the bond they had, or what Izuku assumed they had. As such, Izuku owed All Might nothing. He would keep up the duty of a user of One for All, but beyond that he owed All Might nothing. After a bit more discussion between 𝗵𝗃 and Hisashi, the smaller matters were decided on, and the boys would fly out from Japan the next day to Hisashi. They both would stay at the Todoroki home for the night and not return to the school. Izuku would return to his mother's home, as Hisashi would be calling her and explaining everything. Izuku did need to gather a few things from the house, but he also needed to say goodbye to his mother. Izuku did love his mother, but she was too much of a helicopter parent and always saw him as weak and didn't even let him to go a gym when he was young. As such, Izuku had mixed feelings about leaving, but knew he wanted to keep being a hero and going to America, and spending time with his father would be best for him. 𝗵𝗃 would call the school tonight and tell them that Shouto and Izuku Midoriya wouldn't be returning due to an emergency, and that Izuku's parents were informed of the situation. They shouldn't argue with him since he was the number 2 hero, and regardless, 𝗵𝗃 would go to the school the following day and do the paperwork removing them from the school. They would have people gather their rooms together and ship them out to America. Though Izuku knew he would be donating all of the All Might stuff since it has lost its appeal to him after everything. As such, it was time for Izuku to run to his home. Shouchan agreed to go with him and support him in his talk with his mother, which Izuku thanked him for. They left the Todoroki house and got a move on while 𝗵𝗃 made the call to UA. This would cause a lot of shockwaves amongst UA and its students. It would leave a lot of people questioning what they knew and what they failed to do. Izuku was nervous on the trip back to his home. Why though? Since he obviously loves his mother and his mother loves him. So there is no way she would be upset with this or angry. Right? Well, it's true that they both love each other, but Izuku knows from his past there is more than one form of abuse. He isn't saying his mother was ever physical with him. No, not at all. However, emotional and psychological abuse is a thing, and his mother did quite well in that route, and Izuku doesn't even think she realized she did it. He doesn't really hold it against her since she still loved him with him being quirkless, but she would always restrict what he could do and become a helicopter parent. It was difficult at times to deal with that and then everything else he received. For example, 𝗵𝗃 wouldn't ever let Izuku go to a gym to train because it would be too dangerous for him. Izuku never understood that, since how is physically working out to get stronger to defend oneself going to be dangerous? In his mother's eyes, it meant that he could have a better shot at his dream of being a quirkless hero, which she clearly didn't support. In her view, it meant gym equals stronger equals chances of quirkless hero increased. Therefore, him being a quirkless hero has a higher chance of dying, so she needed to stop him since she never supported that. She became more supportive of him when he had gotten a quirk, but that always ate at Izuku, to be honest. 3. Unlike his mother, Izuku's father did support him even if he was quirkless and wanted to be a hero. His father was blunter though. Izuku remembered asking a long time ago if his father believed he could be a hero, and his father was straight and blunt on his answer. Most quirkless people wouldn't be able to become a hero. It will take someone with extreme determination and the ability to never give up regardless of what is thrown at them. So the question is, do you have that? His father stated. It wasn't a direct yes, but it was the best answer he ever received from anyone, and it was still actual support in Izuku's eyes of his dream to be a hero, since his father didn't just apologize like Izuku's mother or say no as other people did. These are the thoughts Izuku had as Shouto, and he was walking down the street towards his mother's home. Shouto noticed Izuku was freaking out and just put his warm hand on Izuku's back to help ground him back to reality and out of his thoughts. Izuku soon came out of his thoughts and smiled at Shouto and thanked him. "Thanks," Izuku said. "No problem, you've helped me out far more times than I can count, and this is really nothing," Shouto stated. They walked a bit more before Shouto decided to ask a question of Izuku. "After all of this, are we going to leave some note or something for the class and teachers, or are we just going to up and disappear at the rate we are going?" Shouto asked Izuku. Izuku honestly didn't know what to think about that at all. "I'll have to think about it, and we should talk. If we do leave a note, we should have the movers leave it or something, since I don't want to go back. I can't look them in the eyes anymore and pretend it's okay, since none of them stopped Bakugo assaults or bullying. It's the teacher's job, but the little squad around Bakugo and even our own friends did nothing to stop him or say anything out against him. They accepted it and allowed it to happen right in front of them. You're the only one with a problem against it that I knew of, and I stopped you from doing anything since I knew you would attack Bakugo, likely for everything you know about our pasts. God, even Bakugo's little squad would always laugh at some of the things he did to me. It made me feel like I was back in middle school again with no one to help me and being used as a quirk doll again," Izuku stated. Shouto had to really contain himself from letting his fire spark up and out. That was one of the things he didn't understand about his classmates. He knew some of them faced some form of discrimination, but yet they stand by and did nothing about the bullying right in front of them. They were all training to be heroes, yet they did nothing. Izuku just grabbed Shouto's hand and calmed him down. They were both glad to have each other emotional support. It made dealing with their demons so much easier. After a few more minutes of walking, they arrived at the Midoriya's residence. Izuku knew his father had already called his mother and talked to her, but Izuku still didn't know how she was going to be when they got inside. "I'm kind of glad Shouchan came with me," Izuku thought as he put his key in the door and opened it. He called out that he was there, and Shouto called out for intruding. They both walked into the living room and found Izuku Midoriya sitting on the couch looking like she had been crying. "I knew she was going to cry since both of us are crying type of people," Izuku thought. "Hey, Mom," Izuku called out. Izuku snapped out of her thoughts and saw Izuku and his friend that she recognized as Shouto Todoroki. Izuku looked for a few minutes before a few tears went down her face. "Sweetie, I'm so sorry that I did nothing to help you and was so overbearing. I've just made your life worse, didn't I?" Izuku stated. Izuku just let a few tears down his eyes as he moved over to his mother and hugged her. She just rubbed his back as Shouto just made his presence less known the best he could so not to interrupt this moment. Izuku and Izuku talked for a while about all the physical and verbal assaults that he suffered at the hands of his classmates and teachers in the past. She also learned that she was still receiving some in UA. "Isn't Katsuki at least helping you? Isn't he still your friend?" she asked, and Shouto just scoffed, which got her attention. Shouto wasn't going to hold his tongue on that matter, even though Izuku was giving him a look. "She needs to know that the person she saw as a nephew was your main tormentor and told you to kill yourself," Shouto stated, and Izuku's eyes went wide and tried to deny it and looked at her son, but the look he had said it all. Shouto didn't lie to her, and her son's looks confirmed it. Since when did you two being friends?" Izuku asked, and Izuku said around 4 when his quirk didn't come in with everyone else. He explains that Bakugo was the main person that harmed him and all of the things that have happened. He still left out one for all though. His mother wasn't a hero or going to be a hero. As such, Izuku just kept that between him and Shouto, since Shouto could help on the battlefield if they ever run into All for One or his forces. Shouto had become one of Izuku's most trusted people, which is ironic since Ida and Uraraka had become his friends first but also never stepped in to help him. It showed the level of friendship they had for each other compared to others. Overall, 𝗵𝗃𝗃 was shocked to learn about everything in more detail than what Hisashi had stated over the phone. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 wanted to go down to the school and raise a ruckus, but Izuku stopped her. "Mom, you can't," Izuku said. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 looked at her and said that he shouldn't be protecting the school and those idiot classmates of his. Izuku just shook his head. "I'm not. I'm one, protecting myself, and two, protecting innocent people," Izuku said, and both 𝗵𝗃𝗃 and Shouto looked confused at that. "Mom remembers how I said All Might became my mentor. He isn't going to easily let me just go running off out of his view. That is why Dad gave 𝗵𝗃𝗃 a temporary guardianship over me, so he can go to UA and get me and Shouchan withdrawn at the same time and prevent them from stalling my paperwork if All Might tries anything, which is a good chance of. 2. It prevents them from locating me after the fact, since I'm sure they would try to figure out where we went. That is why 𝗵𝗃𝗃 is getting the paperwork and not you or Dad. If Dad directly did it, then they could take an easy guess and think we will go to the #1 hero school in America. As such, if they ask you any questions, just deny them any answers so they can't find us. Also, the reason I can't let you just attack UA is due to the villains who are trying to weaken UA and hero society. I'm not willing to cause problems that will harm others. Just escaping UA and going to live with Dad with Shouchan is good enough for me," Izuku stated. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 looked at her son for a few moments and gave up. "You always have been a kind-hearted boy. You got your father's intelligence in making people fear you as well. I saw those notebooks before, and dear God, you are like your father in that regard. It's why he went into support technology and now owns the #1 support company in America. He made people terrified of him and created so many things over the last decade," 𝗵𝗃𝗃 stated. She still loved her ex-husband, but she just didn't love him in that manner. It's why she didn't go to America with him and they divorced. They both still loved each other on a fundamental level and were good to each other since Izuku was their child, but love, as in full-on love, wasn't between them anymore. Though 𝗵𝗃𝗃 was starting to regret not taking Izuku and going to America when he had gotten that job, since Izuku suffered so much in Japan. America did have a higher quirkless rate and had better laws. There were still problems, but it was far better than Japan from what Hisashi had told her before. Izuku and 𝗵𝗃𝗃 talked for a bit longer before the phone ranged. Shouto was next to it and his eyes widened. "It's UA. They are likely trying to confirm my father's words of both of us staying at his house and Izu's parents being okay with it," Shouto said as he brought the phone over. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 just steeled herself and answered as if none of the previously talked about topics happened. She knew she screwed up and was a bit emotional or psychologically abusive towards her son, and she held a lot of regret about it. She was going to ensure she got better and support her son more now that Hisashi had pointed everything out. She was glad Hisashi went easy on her when they talked and was calm when he explained everything from Izuku's viewpoint, and he was right. She had been emotional or psychologically abusive to her son when she denied him to go to a gym when he was young, or doing other things that she would have had no problem with if he had a quirk. She realized how she was, and that made her resolve to help her son now even stronger. As she answered, she heard the voice of her son's homeroom teacher. "Hello, Ms. Midoriya. This is Aizawa from UA," Aizawa stated. She greeted him and asked what the matter was and if everything was okay. "I'm calling due to the fact that your son and another student went off campus to the other student's home. However, the other student's parent called saying they would be staying at the home for the night due to an emergency. Did you know of this?" Aizawa asked, trying to see if something happened or not. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 just responded quite quickly. "Yes, I know my son went to his friend's home. I also know about the emergency that happened and approved of him staying with the Todorokis for the night instead of returning to the school. I believed 𝗵𝗃𝗃 should have informed you of that." 𝗵𝗃𝗃 lied quite easily. Izuku was shocked at how easily his mother just lied, since she just found out about everything, not even a total of 40 minutes ago. Aizawa thanked her for confirming and did attempt to understand what the emergency was, but 𝗵𝗃𝗃 shut that down quickly. Aizawa, not to be ruined, but private matters are private for a reason, 𝗵𝗃𝗃 stated, and Aizawa apologized and thanked her for confirming again before he ended the call. Shouto just laughed, which confused the two green-haired people. I now know where you get your lying abilities from, Shouto stated. Izuku just rolled his eyes at that and 𝗵𝗃 looked confused. Shouto explained how he's always lied to others about how fine he is unless it was to him, since he was able to see through it due to them sharing everything with each other. 𝗵𝗃 just chucked at her son's embarrassment as he pouted. They sat there talking for a bit longer and enjoyed each other's company. 𝗵𝗃 looked at the clock and saw that it was time for them to get moving around and get Izuku things together for the trip. She was glad that the final exam was the last day of class and they were just unofficially getting their results back the next day so the boys wouldn't miss any schoolwork. Izuku went to his room with Shouto and 𝗵𝗃 and they just stared at all of the All Might merchandise. "Ya mom just sell all of the All Might stuff or donate it to charity, either works for me," Izuku stated without blinking an eye. 𝗵𝗃 and Shouto understood Izuku's lack of attachment to all of this now. It's what helped keep him moving, but All Might has proven to be just like everyone else in Izuku's eyes, so he doesn't want it anymore when he has people like his father, Shouto, and now his mother supporting him fully. Izuku just started to gather his clothing and personal belongings that he wanted to take with him. 𝗵𝗃 brought in a few suitcases that were from Hisashi that she kept since he didn't need them. Izuku started to pack all of his clothing in it and all of his notebooks. Only the most current one was not in the house and he actually kept that on him most of the time, so it was currently at the Todoroki house in his backpack since he took that with him when he left school. Everything at the school right now in clothing or All Might stuff. Though it is honestly things that can just be donated, which he might just have done since he can get new clothing in America with his father. After about 30 minutes of packing things together, they were done. Izuku had 2 suitcases filled with clothing and personal items that he wanted to take with him. Everything else like the computer, bed, or hero merchandise could be replaced if he wanted anything new. His dad was wealthy after all. That is how his mother didn't work most of the time and she only worked to consume the hours that Izuku was at school. Overall, his mother had saved a large amount of money and could live comfortably due to her ex-husband supporting her out of his goodwill. If she decided to, she could stop working and be fine for the next 8 or so years if she budgeted correctly. Though it was doubtful that she would stop working and would likely work more now since Izuku would not be in Japan anymore. She would want a way to consume her time. As they all went back into the living room, Shouto received a text from his sister that said that 𝗵𝗃 sent a car to the Midoriya house to pick them up and the luggage. It would arrive in about the next 5 or so minutes. He informed the other 2 of this and they nodded their heads. "I'm still wondering how my dad knows yours," Izuku stated, and at that 𝗵𝗃 chimed in. "Ah. That's due to the fact that they both went to UA together. Hisashi went in the support course and was known to terrorize the hero students. 𝗵𝗃 was one of his main targets and would use his mind to screw with 𝗵𝗃, which has gained a healthy amount of fear when they are in the same room together. Your father would do things similar to what you do with your notebooks, and he would just pick people apart and make them uncomfortable and fear him," 𝗵𝗃 stated, and the boy's eyes were wide. "Well, that is interesting to know. I think I need Dad to teach me his ways so I can use it in my hero training," Izuku stated, and Shouto tensed at that. Dear God, he is a bit scary already when he picks apart quirks, and now he is going to be taught to do it by someone that makes his own father tense up. Welp, I pray for the people that enter Izu's line of sight," Shouto thought. Soon, after a bit more talking, the car arrived and the driver came to the door to retrieve them. They wished 𝗵𝗃 goodbye and Izuku and her hugged each other and had a tearful goodbye since it would be quite some time before they physically see each other again. Izuku promised to text and call a lot and they soon separated. Izuku and Shouto both got into the car that 𝗵𝗃 had sent to the house. The driver took the luggage and placed it in the trunk as the boys got in the car. Izuku was thankful that 𝗵𝗃 was honestly turning out to be a better guy and that the family situation was improving. It didn't wipe away the sins committed, but at least he was making progress that the family was willing to accept. Though Izuku knew they were still skeptical of the progress but were willing to at least bear with it and see how it goes. The boys just relaxed in the car as they were being driven to the house. As such, about 10 minutes later they arrived back at the Todoroki home. Izuku and Shouto got out of the car and grabbed the bags. Izuku would be sleeping on a futon in Shouto's room tonight since there was no point in preparing an entire room for just one night and the boys were comfortable with each other anyway. As such, Izuku dropped his stuff off at the room and went and joined everyone in the dining room. Izuku had found 𝗲𝗏 Todoroki in the dining room as well. Izuku knew she spent a good amount of time in the separate living area and would only spend a portion of the day on the other side of the house when 𝗵𝗏𝗏 was home. She was still getting used to being around him again and 𝗵𝗏𝗏 would take his movements slow when she was in the same room. Ray called Izuku over to sit down as she had made a meal for everyone. "Come sit everyone. It's time for dinner." She called out and everyone came into the dining room to sit down. 𝗵𝗏𝗏 took the farthest seat away from Ray to ensure she was comfortable. As they started to eat, 𝗵𝗏𝗏 spoke up. "Shouto, Midoriya." 𝗵𝗏𝗏 started and Izuku just stated to just call him Izuku, which 𝗵𝗏𝗏 and everyone else nodded their heads. "I did call the school and inform them that you wouldn't return tonight, but they did push back on Izuku's. I know they likely called your mother or father. Do you know how that went and were you able to talk to her before they called and checked in?" 𝗵𝗏𝗏 asked since he wanted UA to be ill-prepared for his visit tomorrow and unable to stop them from transferring the boys so quickly. Due to the fact that the semester has already come to an end, the school would have no reason to reject his withdrawal request the very next day and he would be able to force them to give the paperwork up so he could fax it over to Hisashi so he could get to work on getting the boys into the #1 hero school in America. Izuku nodded his head and then spoke. "They did call a bit after me and my mother had finished talking. She easily misdirected them and went with the story that you did of an emergency. We do know Aizawa aka Eraserhead did try to gain information of what the emergency was, but my mother shut it down and said it was a private matter and private matters are private for a reason, which made him stop asking questions about it," Izuku stated. 𝗵𝗏𝗏 nodded his head at that statement and ate a bit more. "I did call your father up and we did arrange the setup for you boys while you're over there. You will live with Hisashi and I'm giving Shouto a credit card that he can use for most day-to-day expenses, but Hisashi stated that he would cover everything else since money isn't an issue. As such, Shouto, if any big emergencies happen, just go ahead and put it on the credit card, or any day-to-day expenses you need to, since money isn't an issue for us either. This doesn't mean go buy a large number of unneeded things, but if you're out enjoying a free day or something, just put it on the card instead of having the Midoriyas pay for it, since Hisashi is covering food and housing since you will live with him," 𝗵𝗏𝗏 stated, and Shouto was a bit surprised at how easygoing his father was with this. Izuku's father must really freak him out. Shouto thought, and Izuku was honestly thinking the same thing. "Also, boys, you both will leave late in the day tomorrow to ensure I can get the paperwork done first before you leave. Once it's done, I'll fax it to Hisashi and you can board the plane. It's a private plane that Hisashi is sending over. That's also why you are leaving late into the day and not early morning. If you went commercial, then there would be records of your boarding passes. However, Hisashi's company sends their planes out to other countries regularly at different times for business meetings and other things at different times, so there is no set secluded. This will also help hide your departure so All Might and Nizu can't track you down. Izuku has American citizenship since Hisashi was born there when his parents were in America before they moved back, so Izuku automatically gets it due to his father being an American by birth but also being a Japanese citizen. Shouto will be registered with the company as a sponsored student, which allows him to enter the country since he will be going to a hero school. The laws are more relaxed if a company is sponsoring a student, which makes it easier and quicker to get them in. I've also sent any and all paperwork over to Hisashi that he would need. He's been granted partial guardianship over you since you will live with him, and if an emergency happens he can make medical and other decisions for you since you are a minor. 𝗵𝗏𝗏 explained to the kids and the rest of the family so they know how everything is going to work. They needed to make sure Nizu and All Might couldn't track Izuku or Shouto down so easily. As such, going on a private company plane will allow them to exit the country easily since they don't have to declare their passengers and only have to declare their flight plan. Now there will be some paperwork due to them being registered as entering the country once they land and are processed, but those will be government files that Japan would have to request for, which would be a bit tricky since All Might nor UA would have a real reason to request them without saying the boys committed a crime or gone missing. The crime they would have to declare what it was, which 𝗵𝗃𝗃 could kill easily unless it was something tricky, and the missing would easily be dealt with via 𝗵𝗃𝗃 and Izuku's parents, since they wouldn't need to know where the boys went as long as the family knew where they were. They would just have to be careful if 𝗬𝗍𝗃 gets the help of the lie detector detective, but 𝗵𝗃𝗃 already had his lawyers ready in the event of that and had told Hisashi about using them if push came to shove. As such, they fell into some more easy topics to talk about. They talked about how they were doing with their quirks, which Izuku just fell into a long tangent which scared 𝗵𝗃𝗃 a bit. God damn, the boy is just like his father. At least Shouto's friends with him and won't make an enemy out of him. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 thought as he had shifted slightly away from Izuku, which everyone noticed but didn't comment on. They just found it funny they have found several people that make 𝗵𝗃𝗃 so uncomfortable. The family wasn't going to ruin a very good thing for themselves and would make sure to have loads of conversation with the Midoriyas from now on. This conversation went on for about 40 minutes before the dinner was finished. Everyone was laughing and joking at how Izuku was with his quirk theories and how things could be applied and how some heroes and villains were being stupid with their quirks. Even 𝗵𝗃𝗃 himself was far more relaxed than normal when he was with the family. As the dinner came to an end and they went their separate ways, they all realized how easy and relaxed the room felt with Izuku in it. The kid is really good at making people feel at ease, thought 𝗵𝗃𝗃 as he retreated to his office to do some paperwork, since the withdrawal forms required some forms to be submitted on their side to start the process. Shouto and Izuku just went to the bedroom and relaxed. I can't believe I'm really doing this. I'm going to up and leave without telling my own 𝗵𝗃𝗃, Izuku stated. He didn't feel bad about doing it, but he felt he was betraying One for All and he wishes he could find out how the previous users felt. Shouto just told him it was fine. He reminded me how All Might was as a 𝗵𝗃𝗃. He did admit that he was a horrible teacher overall and was improving, but from what Shouto heard from Izuku, he wasn't providing direct support to Izuku enough as a 𝗵𝗃𝗃 should be. They didn't really do after-school training and work on his techniques or anything. Instead, All Might had to call in his old mentor to help train Izuku since he himself couldn't do it. As such, Shouto told Izuku the only obligation Izuku had was to get strong to face 𝗳𝗏 in the future when he had the quirk, since doing so now would be a death sentence and he could not be expected to just sit around to be hunted by 𝗳𝗏. You got to look at it this way. All Might himself left to America to escape 𝗳𝗏. This is slightly different but working on the same concept. You are leaving due to All Might, 𝗬𝗍𝗃𝗃's, and everyone else's failure of stopping the ill treatment and comprising your education. As such, you are seeking new education out to make sure you can fulfill your responsibility as the 9th user of One for All. It's not you that has the teamwork problem. Even my own father agrees that the final exam events were bullshit and you shouldn't have been called out on it. Shouto stated. Izuku just found the irony of that. The hero known to be less cooperative in teamwork was the one stating the events in Izuku's exam was bullshit. The irony didn't pass Izuku on that at all. Izuku just thanked Shouto for his advice and they both got under the covers. Shouto slightly increased the warmth side of his quirk. Not even to start a fire but to warm the room up, and Izuku went to sleep quickly. Izuku had found that the nightmares and memories of his past didn't haunt him as bad when Shouto slept with Izuku, since it reassured him that he had someone looking out for him and the warmth of his quirk helped keep him grounded. Shouto himself always loved doing it. Using his quirk like that helped his own mental monsters, since it proved that he was far from being like his father, since he was using his fire side to help people in manners like this, which helped put his demons away. Soon Shouto fell asleep as well, since his own mental demons were screwing with him that night with Izuku near. They both slept soundlessly in the night. Though, Izuku soon found himself in a strange place. It was a dark void and Izuku couldn't move. Everything but his eyes was covered in a mist. He wondered if he was in a new nightmare that he hasn't had before. Then he heard a voice. "Hello, 9th," stated the voice. Izuku couldn't move so he couldn't search for it, but then someone appeared in front of him. It was a woman with black hair and black eyes. Then Izuku remembered that she had just called him 9th and he started to freak out, but she calmed him down. Then Izuku remembered that she had just called him 9th and he started to freak out, but she calmed him down. "Stop freaking out. It's fine, you're inside One for All. You were brought here for a reason, she stated. Izuku was still confused about who she was since he was never told anything about the past users of One for All nor if something like this was possible. He remembered seeing the echoes or ghosts of the users before but not like this. The reason this is happening is many things but those will be talked about another time in the future when you have a bit more control of One for All or you trigger some events. The direct reason for this meeting is because we felt your stress and emotions regarding the 8th user and One for All. We understand you feel as if you were betraying the legacy. We're here to set the recorded straight on that issue, state the person, but Izuku still didn't know who she was. Ah. You're right. I haven't introduced myself, have I? She stated. Then she went on to introduce herself as 𝗵𝗃 𝗵𝗃, the 7th user of One for All who was also the 𝗵STR of the 8th user aka 𝗬𝗏. Now in regards to your situation and One for All, we can't say we are happy with this situation. Never before has this happened that the 𝗵STR has more or less turned their back on their successor and the successor is escaping their own 𝗵STR. However, we understand your reaction and support it since you are still willing to uphold the responsibility of One for All in the future when you're strong enough to fight All for One. Overall, it's a good idea to go to some other place that you feel your education won't be compromised and you would also be distancing yourself from All for One while you're in a weaker. You didn't initially agree to fight him when Toshi gave you the quirk, which he should have still told you beforehand even if he thought he was dead, but you choose to keep going even after finding out about it. We thank you for that and are behind your choice to leave Japan and leave the 8th user, the 7th user stated. Izuku felt good and more at ease to know that One for All supported him in his decision. Nana looked like she had one more thing to say but she was hesitant. Izuku thought what he wanted to say since it was clear that she could read his mind in this place. As such, he asked her what she wanted to say. This opinion is mine alone and the others suggested that I shouldn't ask this of you. As such, you have the right to reject it since it is only my viewpoint alone and not the collective will of the entire past users, Nana stated. Izuku asked what it was. She took a second before talking. I would like you to leave a letter directly to Toshi but have it given to Gran Torino for him to provide to Toshi. I would like you to explain everything from your viewpoint to Toshi and how he screwed up. I would like you to give him an opportunity to realize his mistake and correct it one day in the future. I'm not telling you to stay in contact with him, but one day if you meet again then at least give him a chance to explain himself once he has learned his mistakes and see if he has changed. Nana asked. Izuku thought for a few moments. He didn't know All Might was meant to be his mentor and he looked like he was willing to change his decision on giving One for All to someone else so easily because of one event. However, Izuku looked at Nana's face and could see the longing for them to reconnect one day. Izuku made his decision and thought in his mind his answer. He would leave the note and if their paths crossed again then he would let All Might have his chance. Nana thanked Izuku and told him how kind he was to agree to such a request, then his 𝗵STR had hurt him so much. She also asked for one more thing. Kid, if possible keep in contact with Gran Torino so you can ask him for advice about One for All or get updates from Japan. If you tell him about this dream and interaction within One for All while explaining what happened at UA and maybe some things about your past if you want, he will keep his mouth shut of your contact with him. You don't even have to tell him directly where you are if you don't want to. I think staying in contact with him will be beneficial for your learning control of One for All or any tricks you might need advice on. Gran Torino did meet the three of us after all, Nana stated. Izuku thought for some time and he had to agree it would be wise of him to keep a knowledge source like Gran Torino in the loop. He wasn't going to tell his location most likely, but he would at least keep in contact via phone calls or text messages. He also trusted the 7th's words about Gran Torino since they were both close friends. As such, Izuku soon found himself disappearing. Don't worry, kid. Since we talked about everything we really needed to hit, One for All is kicking you out since this is the realm for us dead users and not you who lives, Nana stated. Izuku calmed down since he thought something was wrong. Soon, he woke up with a startle and then remembered what all happened. He looked at the clock and it was about 10 more minutes before he would have woken up anyway. As such, he just shook Shouto and woke him up as well. Why did you wake me up 10 minutes early? He groaned. Izuku just chuckled. I had a dream thing with one for all past users, Izuku said, and Shouto woke up fully at that statement. Then Izuku started to explain what happened. After Izuku woke up Shouto, Izuku explained everything that happened inside of his weird dream. He talked about how he wasn't really able to move, but there was a woman who was the 7th user of the quirk and was All Might's MSTR. Izuku explained how One for All was backing his decision to leave, like he was, though he did mention that One for All wasn't happy that it was going on, but they understood why he was doing what he was doing and found no fault in him for doing it. Izuku did also go on to explain the personal request from Nana and her suggestion to keep Gran Torino in the loop without telling his location. Shouto kept silent the entire time that Izuku was talking. He just let him go off and explain everything that he could explain. After about 5 minutes of Izuku talking, Shouto spoke up once he was finished. I don't like All Might anymore, but I can see why she made the request. He screwed up and even she knows it. That is why the other users couldn't support her request to you. However, she does have a point that he is still your mentor in the form that he provided you the quirk and the legacy, and if he could change, then it would be ideal to one day reconnect in the future. However, I want you to always remember that it's your quirk and not his anymore. Everything you decided to do with it is your decision, and he can't make you do anything anymore. Even if he were to ask you to give it up to someone else, he doesn't have the right to. Also, keeping in contact with Gran Torino does sound like a good idea if he will keep his mouth shut about being in contact with you. Shouto stated. Izuku just nodded his head and agreed that it was his quirk and it was his decision on who to tell and what to do with it from now on. As such, the boys went to go eat breakfast before Izuku would start writing the letter to All Might. They also decided to write a general letter to the class and UA. Good morning, boys, Ray called out as Izuku and Shouto walked into the dining room. Everyone else except Shouto's sister was in the room already since she had to go to work. They all sat down and ate dinner. Izuku noticed files next to 𝗵𝗃𝗏 but also 2 new phones, which confused Izuku. As they were eating, 𝗵𝗃𝗏 started to speak up after a few minutes. Shouto, Izuku. He called out. They both looked up with an eyebrow raised. 𝗵𝗃𝗏 then handed them both the phones. New phones. Transfer any contact details and apps or whatever you need to do to these phones. The phones have already been set up and the passcode is set to 1234 currently until you change them. Hisashi and I decided it would be better to hide your tracks this way since they might try to track your old numbers. I've already sent both of your numbers to Hisashi and Izuku Midoriya and sent the numbers to the rest of our family as well. 𝗵𝗃𝗏 stated. They thanked him for the new phones since he was right that UA aka 𝗍𝗍 might try to track them via the old phones since 𝗍𝗍 would likely agree to All Might request to find them due to One for All. 𝗵𝗃𝗏 also said the phones have a pre-installed GPS location app that 𝗵𝗃𝗏 and Hisashi can activate. If we think you're in danger and can't get a hold of you, we will activate them. It won't ping your phone, but it would display a notification inside the app if you checked it. You can also use the app to send an emergency GPS ping from your phones to Hisashi and my phones as well. I won't be able to do much, but Hisashi would be able to alert police and heroes in America to get to your location. 𝗵𝗃𝗏 stated as he opened the app on his phone to show them what it looked like. 3 After eating for a bit longer, everyone finished and it was time for 𝗵𝗃𝗏 to head to UA to start the withdrawal, which will send UA scrambling to find them soon. Izuku and Shouto were told not to leave the house after he leaves since they might try to find them outside and they wouldn't have legal reasons to get into the house to look. Izuku did bring up the request to stop by Gran Torino and 𝗵𝗃𝗏 said he would have the car arrive about an hour earlier than planned for them to make the stop since they would drive through that city to get to the airport they were leaving from anyway. As such, Izuku and Shouto went back to the bedroom and got to work on the first letter. This letter would be the one that would be given to All Might. Now 𝗵𝗃𝗏 himself grabbed his things and headed off to UA. After about 15 minutes of driving, 𝗵𝗃𝗏 had arrived at the school. 3 After about 15 minutes of driving, 𝗵𝗃𝗏 had arrived at the school. He got out of his car that he parked and looked at the building. Even I must admit the school always had an imposing aura around it, but it seems weak today compared to all of the other times that I've come to this school. Thought 𝗵𝗃𝗏. He walked up to the gate and pressed the button since he didn't have a pass to get into the school. He knew better than to try to force his way in due to the security, though that didn't stop a group of villains from doing it. A voice came over the intercom and it was Principal 𝗵𝗃𝗃. Why hello 𝗵𝗃𝗃. What do we owe the pleasure of having the number 2 hero coming to our school today? Am I to assume it has something to do with the emergency yesterday that the 2 boys had? 𝗵𝗃𝗃 asked. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 just thought for a few seconds and chose his words carefully. He didn't want to give the principal too much information to bounce around in his head and allow the principal to use it to generate new information out of thin air, which he really was good at. I'm here to talk to you about an important matter. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 stated with hopes of not giving away information by avoiding the question. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 just gave in since it appeared he wasn't going to get information easily and allowed him into the school. He printed a temporary pass at the gate which 𝗵𝗃𝗃 grabbed and walked into the school. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 soon found himself walking down the halls and saw a few teachers walking around. They saw him and raised an eyebrow, but he just walked towards the principal office. They all wondered why he was here, and they all knew that Izuku Midoriya and Shouto Todoroki didn't return to campus last night due to both families approving them staying at the Todoroki home due to an emergency, which they wondered what it was. Within a few minutes 𝗵𝗃𝗃 arrived at the office of the principal. He was about to knock on the door when he just opened up and he was called into the room. He walked in to find the principal alone and sitting at his desk. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 just walked in and closed the door. He then walked to the chair in front of the office desk and sat down in front of 𝗵𝗃𝗃 without giving much information off. He then walked to the chair in front of the office desk and sat down in front of 𝗵𝗃𝗃 without giving much information off. 12 The principal was sitting there wondering what 𝗵𝗃𝗃 wanted. I'm really curious what emergency happened after the 2 students left the campus. Based on Midnight's words, they didn't seem distressed, so it shouldn't be something tied to a villain. So the question is, what happened and why is he here one day after the so-called emergency? 𝗵𝗃𝗃 thought in his mind as he watched 𝗵𝗃𝗃 come into the office and sit down in front of him. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 pulled up the files he brought in, which 𝗵𝗃𝗃 noticed. He placed them on the table and started to speak. As of this moment, I'm hereby officially removing Shouto Todoroki and Izuku Midoriya from UA's care. I want the withdrawal process done and to be handed all paperwork needed of their medical and academic records, stated 𝗵𝗃𝗃, and for a brief moment 𝗵𝗃𝗃 was caught off guard and his eyes started to widen. He did not expect this. May I inquire why you are pulling your son out of UA? Also, you are not the legal guardian of Izuku Midoriya, so we can't complete that request. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 stated, but 𝗵𝗃𝗃 pulled out from the files a document signed by a 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗃 Midoriya that gave 𝗵𝗃𝗃 the right to make legal decisions for one Izuku Midoriya. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 was confused since they had nothing on a 𝗧𝗵𝗃 Midoriya in their system that he knew of. He then was handed another paper that showed Izuku's custody being transferred legally from 𝗵𝗃𝗃 Midoriya to 𝗧𝗵𝗃 Midoriya. Did something happen to 𝗵𝗃𝗃 Midoriya last night that we are unaware of? But the speed of all of this seems fishy though. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 thought. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 knew that the principal would question how they got the work done so fast and would be wondering what happened to 𝗵𝗃𝗃 Midoriya, but nothing did happen to her. Everything was legal and the principal had no legs to stand on in blocking the request. May I inquire if something happened to 𝗵𝗃𝗃 Midoriya since we were unaware that custody had changed to Izuku's father? 𝗵𝗃𝗃 asked. Nothing has happened to her. Legal custody was changed as of last night. I've been granted permission to withdraw Izuku Midoriya alongside my son. As such, I want you to finish the withdrawal process and provide me all documents needed for transfer into another school by the time I leave. You have no reason to stall this process since the semester is already done and everything should have been submitted already per your school policies that require the staff to have grades submitted and completed by the end of the school day yesterday. As such, their records are easily gathered for a withdrawal and for you to provide me strong copies so I can transfer them into a different school. 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃 stated. Many things were running through 𝗵𝗃𝗃's mind at that moment and he was trying to figure out what caused the 2 families to withdraw the children. There was also the problem of the fact that Izuku Midoriya was the 9th user of 𝗵𝗃𝗃. I will start the withdrawal process. Though, may you inform me of the reason that you are withdrawing both of these boys this quickly? 𝗵𝗃𝗃 asked. 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃 didn't provide a direct answer. You should know the reason, if not you will figure it out soon. 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃 stated. 𝗵𝗃 said he would go inform the staff to start getting all the paperwork in order and he could wait in his office. 𝗵𝗃 nodded his head and just waited. 𝗵𝗃 on the other hand exited the office and started to move a bit quickly to the staff room. What reason would they have to be pulled out? Nothing major happened as of recent that would warrant it. I could understand at the USJ, but right now. 𝗵𝗃 thought as he soon arrived at the staff room and quickly opened the door. He was in luck and all of the staff including All Might was in the room. Listen up now. 𝗵𝗃 shouted, grabbing everyone's attention. They all noticed that 𝗵𝗃 looked a bit tense and he was about to lose the 9th user of 𝗵𝗃 to some other school and he didn't know the cause. There was also the fact that 𝗵𝗃 was on the damn rise and they were about to lose the 9th damn user of the quirk that could stop him. 𝗵𝗃 looked at Izuku with a small glare which made him tense. So someone please tell me why 𝗵𝗃 is in my office requesting the withdrawal of not one but two students. 𝗵𝗃 stated. Everyone was confused. Did 𝗵𝗃 have another child here that they didn't know about? Izuku spoke up. I'm assuming Shouto Todoroki is one student, but who is the second? He doesn't have any more children here. Izuku asked. The son is one and the other is none other than Izuku Midoriya. 𝗵𝗃 stated, and this caused All Might to choke and cough BLD all at the same time. They were all confused about how he had permission to withdraw Izuku Midoriya. He has the legal right to withdraw Midoriya. He has all of the required paperwork that grants him partial guardianship. He is also no longer under the custody of Izuku Midoriya but his father Hisashi Midoriya who signed the partial guardianship. So please tell me, did we miss something since we have no choice but to accept the withdrawal request and he's not leaving until we provide the paperwork in hand, so we can't track which school they are going to either. 𝗵𝗃 stated. All Might paled as he listens to 𝗵𝗃 talk more and more. All Might, did Midoriya tell you something happened in this family since you two are close? 𝗵𝗃 says Izuku Midoriya is fine but for the custody to be last night and then the withdrawal to happen right away. This all happened right after the so-called emergency that required both boys to stay out of UA last night. 𝗵𝗃 stated. All Might responded that he wasn't told anything and suggested he could try calling young Midoriya's phone, which 𝗵𝗃 nodded his head. All Might called the phone and put it on speaker. The number you have reached has been discounted and is no longer in service. Please ensure you entered the correct number, stated the voice on the phone. Everyone's eyes widened at that. All Might himself grew even more pale. His successor just disappeared and no one knew his location except possibly 𝗵𝗃. 𝗵𝗃 just shook his head. We're at a roadblock currently. As it stands, we have no choice but to accept his request. Izuku starts getting the files ready in paper form to turn over to 𝗵𝗃. He wants physical copies so he can send it himself, so we have no way of confirming what school they are being sent to and the other school won't call us to confirm they were received like they do if we send them. 𝗵𝗃 stated. Izuku could only get to work while his mind raced around the endless questions on if he missed something happening to his students. Present Mike spoke up and asked 𝗵𝗃 if he tried getting the answer from 𝗵𝗃. I did, he said. We already knew why, and if we didn't we would figure it out soon, which I honestly don't like. It feels like we're about to get hit with something we aren't seeing coming. 𝗵𝗃 stated. 𝗵𝗃 looked at All Might and knew they would need to try and find Izuku Midoriya since he was the 9th user and wouldn't be under the protection of UA, which meant 𝗵𝗃 had a better chance at getting him. Though that would be a private discussion once 𝗵𝗃 left. After about 30 minutes of gathering everything, the paperwork was ready. It just required the signature of 𝗵𝗃 to sign off on everything. 𝗵𝗃 signed the paperwork and then headed back to his office. He would need to have a quick staff meeting to try and figure out what happened. After a few minutes, he arrived back in his office and was at this desk. Here is all of the paperwork signed and ready, 𝗵𝗃 stated. Thank you. I will have a moving team arrive in the next day or so to pick up everything in their rooms. 𝗵𝗃 stated. 𝗵𝗃 really wanted to know where they were going but knew he needed to wait until 𝗵𝗃 left. After a few minutes and confirming 𝗵𝗃 was off campus, 𝗵𝗃 just went straight for the staff room and looked at everyone. Okay. Let's retrace recent events and try to figure out why two of our students from 1A just got pulled out of UA. The way 𝗵𝗃 worded his answer to why they were being pulled out implied that something did indeed happen and we already have knowledge of it. As such, we need to see if we noticed something that we didn't report or if we have something we didn't dig into. Get to thinking everyone since we have the answer or we'll get told it soon, which I would like to know beforehand to plan against. 𝗲𝗵𝗃, come join me in my office, 𝗵𝗃𝗧 stated. They both left the staff room and headed to his office. After a few minutes, they both sat down and they were drinking some tea. We need to find Izuku Midoriya. The fact that he has just dropped off the face of the earth like this is concerning, 𝗵𝗃𝗧 stated. 𝗲𝗵𝗃 decided to call the detective and have him look into this unofficially, since unless they had a legal reason to be considered they couldn't officially start any case, and what case would they even start right now? Do you know anything about Hisashi Midoriya? 𝗵𝗃𝗧 asked, and 𝗲𝗵𝗃 said no. Izuku didn't talk much about his father. All I know is that he lives in America and his parents divorced. So I don't understand how he got custody of Izuku, since that would normally include a court case, since Izuku Midoriya is still alive as we currently know and wouldn't have lost custody without going to court. 𝗲𝗵𝗃 stated. They got to work and just started to dig into anything they knew of. 𝗵𝗃 had left UA and was now on his way back to his home. He had the files in hand and was reviewing everything to make sure everyone was ready to be faxed over to Hisashi. He saw in Izuku's file the number of injuries that the boy had, and dear God, he was shocked at the determination that the boy had. He also saw his progress in controlling his quirk. Overall, Izuku was doing good at the speed he was going, but would need to get faster if he wanted a good % of his quirk under control. The boy would also need to be careful since Recovery Girl wouldn't be there to heal his wounds, since he didn't know what medical staff they had on hand at the other school. He knew they had some good staff that they hired, but 𝗵𝗃 still didn't know how they compared to Recovery Girl. After a bit more time he arrived at his home and parked. 𝗵𝗃 walked into the house and found the entire family sitting in the living room together. "I'm home," he called out as he entered the room. They all welcomed him back. "How did it go?" Shouto asked. 𝗵𝗃 was silent for a few moments before he started to talk. "I can tell you right now, 𝗵𝗃𝗧 and UA are trying to dig into anything and everything to figure out why you two were pulled out, since I provided no reason. He did ask for a reason and I told him that UA already knew the reason, and if they didn't they would soon," 𝗵𝗃 stated. Izuku just chuckled a bit. That should keep them searching for the rest of the day and maybe tomorrow before they find something or figure something out. I'm betting 𝗲𝗵𝗃 likely called the detective to start looking into things unofficially though. So we need to be careful until we're out of the country where his authority ends," Izuku stated. Everyone agreed and they needed to limit what they said if the detective started poking around due to the detective's quirk. Izuku had finished the letter that he was going to have left at the dorms by the moving crew. He wondered what the reactions of the class would be when they read it, but first, he needed to give the letter to Gran Torino. The car would be arriving in about an hour and the drive to the airport was about 2 hours long, since the private plane was dropping people from Izuku's father company off at the airport, which is why they had to go so far out, since the plane would drop off the previous passengers and then take them to America once where they needed to go, and it would be ready by the time they arrived at the private airport. Both of Shouto's parents would be going with them to the airport, but 𝗵𝗃 would not be. They are concerned that UA might look at her movements and try to find Izuku via that sign. 𝗲𝗵𝗃 and 𝗵𝗃𝗧 will be more interested in where Izuku is at than Shouto. As such, 𝗵𝗃 had called while 𝗵𝗃 was away and had video talked to Izuku for a while when he was doing the letter to 𝗲𝗵𝗃 and UA. Shouto's sister also had arrived home already, since she went in early to get off early enough for the trip to the airport. After talking a bit more in the house and making any last-minute plans, it was time for the car to arrive at the house. A knock on the door happened and Ray went to go answer it while the boys hid just in case it wasn't the car driver. Though it was indeed the car driver. The car that they had gotten was a limo, since there were so many of them. Everyone got the luggage of Izuku and Shouto out to the car and in it, and then entered the car. It would be about 30 minutes until they arrived at Gran Torino's home, and Izuku didn't even know if he was going to be there or not. If he wasn't, he would just have to leave the letter and note explaining some small details. 𝗵𝗃𝗏 asked the boys if they were ready to face the hero world in America. Boys, a warning to give. America has some tougher villains due to how large it is, and they have more organized crime as well, since villains can hide in many more places in America due to all of the open lands in some states. If you get in trouble with an organized gang or something, then inform the school as soon as possible so they can take measures. Also, I'm proud of you both since you determined not to let either of your education to be compromised by UA and choose to take action to find a better place of study for yourself. 𝗵𝗃𝗏 stated. Shouto was shocked at what his father said. So was everyone else in the family, and Izuku just didn't know what to do since he saw everyone's faces. Wow, I'm almost proud of you, old man, Toya stated. Shouto and his brothers just laughed while Rei and 𝗵𝗃𝗏 just shook their heads. Izuku just kept his mouth shut since he didn't want to piss 𝗵𝗃𝗏 off. 𝗵𝗃𝗏 got annoyed and just glared outside of the window due to his sons laughing. I'm trying to be serious and all, and I get laughed at, he grumbled. Rei just consoled him, which made him less annoyed. Time quickly passed and they soon arrived at Gran Torino's home. Izuku looked at Shouto and he knew what he wanted. They both got out of the limo and said they would be back. They walked a bit down from the main street since the car couldn't go directly down the street to where Gran Torino lived. Shouto looked at the building with a questioning look. Yes, this is where he lives. He's been here for so long that he never left. Let's go see if he is inside. Izuku said to answer Shouto's question that went unasked. Izuku and Shouto opened the front door and went to another door. Izuku and Shouto opened the front door and went to another door. Izuku knew Gran Torino kept it unlocked, so he just entered. Gran Torino, you here? Izuku called out and said who it was. Gran Torino soon came down the steps. What are you doing here, boy? Thank you. I will have a moving team arrive in the next day or so to pick up everything in their rooms. 𝗵𝗃𝗏 stated. Nizu really wanted to know where they were going but knew he needed to wait until 𝗵𝗃𝗏 left. After a few minutes and confirming 𝗵𝗃𝗏 was off campus, Nizu just went straight for the staff room and looked at everyone. Okay. Let's retrace recent events and try to figure out why 2 of our students from 1A just got pulled out of UA. The way 𝗵𝗃𝗏 worded his answer to why they were being pulled out implied that something did indeed happen and we already have knowledge of it. As such, we need to see if we noticed something that we didn't report or if we have something we didn't dig into. Get to thinking, everyone, since we have the answer, or we'll get told it soon, which I would like to know beforehand to plan against. All might come join me in my office. Nizu stated. They both left the staff room and headed to his office. After a few minutes, they both sat down and they were drinking some tea. We need to find Izuku Midoriya. The fact that he has just dropped off the face of the earth like this is concerning, Nizu stated. All Might decided to call the detective and have him look into this unofficially, since unless they had a legal reason to be considered they couldn't officially start any case, and what case would they even start right now? Do you know anything about Hisashi Midoriya? Nizu asked and All Might said no. Izuku didn't talk much about his father. All I know is that he lives in America and his parents divorced. So I don't understand how he got custody of Izuku, since that would normally include a court case, since Izuku Midoriya is still alive as we currently know and wouldn't have lost custody without going to court. All Might stated. They got to work and just started to dig into anything they knew of. 𝗵𝗃𝗏 had left UA and was now on his way back to his home. He had the files in hand and was reviewing everything to make sure everyone was ready to be faxed over to Hisashi. He saw in Izuku's file the number of injuries that the boy had, and dear God, he was shocked at the determination that the boy had. He also saw his progress in controlling his quirk. Overall, Izuku was doing good at the speed he was going, but would need to get faster if he wanted a good % of his quirk under control. The boy would also need to be careful since Recovery Girl wouldn't be there to heal his wounds, since he didn't know what medical staff they had on hand at the other school. He knew they had some good staff that they hired, but 𝗵𝗃𝗏 still didn't know how they compared to Recovery Girl. After a bit more time, he arrived at his home and parked. 𝗵𝗃𝗏 walked into the house and found the entire family sitting in the living room together. "I'm home," he called out as he entered the room. They all welcomed him back. "How did it go?" Shouto asked. 𝗵𝗃𝗏 was silent for a few moments before he started to talk. I can tell you right now 𝗵𝗃𝗁 are trying to dig into anything and everything to figure out why you two were pulled out since I provided no reason. He did ask for a reason and I told him that 𝗂𝗏 already knew the reason and if they didn't they would soon. 𝗵𝗃𝗏 stated. Izuku just chuckled a bit. That should keep them searching for the rest of the day and maybe tomorrow before they find something or figure something out. I'm betting All Might likely called the detective to start looking into things unofficially though. So we need to be careful until we're out of the country where his authority ends. Izuku stated. Everyone agreed and they needed to limit what they said if the detective started poking around due to the detective's quirk. Izuku had finished the letter that he was going to have left at the dorms by the moving crew. He wondered what the reactions of the class would be when they read it, but first, he needed to give the letter to 𝗵𝗃𝗁. The car would be arriving in about an hour and the drive to the airport was about 2 hours long since the private plane was dropping people from Izuku's father company off at the airport, which is why they had to go so far out since the plane would drop off the previous passengers and then take them to America once where they needed to go and it would be ready by the time they arrived at the private airport. Both of Shouto's parents would be going with them to the airport but 𝗵𝗃𝗁 would not be. They are concerned that 𝗂𝗏 might look at her movements and try to find Izuku via that sign. All Might and 𝗵𝗏𝗁 will be more interested and where Izuku is at than Shouto. As such, 𝗵𝗃𝗁 had called while 𝗵𝗃𝗁 was away and had video talked to Izuku for a while when he was doing the letter to All Might and 𝗂𝗏. Shouto's sister also had arrived home already since she went in early to get off early enough for the trip to the airport. After talking a bit more in the house and making any last-minute plans, it was time for the car to arrive at the house. A knock on the door happened and Ray went to go answer it while the boys hid just in case it wasn't the car driver. Though it was indeed the car driver. The car that they had gotten was a limo since there were so many of them. Everyone got the luggage of Izuku and Shouto out to the car and in it and then entered the car. It would be about 30 minutes until they arrived at 𝗵𝗃𝗁's home and Izuku didn't even know if he was going to be there or not. If he wasn't, he would just have to leave the letter and note explaining some small details. 𝗵𝗃𝗁 asked the boys if they were ready to face the hero world in America. Boys, a warning to give. America has some tougher villains due to how large it is, and they have more organized crime as well since villains can hide in many more places in America due to all of the open lands in some states. If you get in trouble with an organized gang or something, then inform the school as soon as possible so they can take measures. Also, I'm proud of you both since you determined not to let either of your education to be compromised by 𝗂𝗏 and choose to take action to find a better place of study for yourself. 𝗵𝗃𝗁 stated. Shouto was shocked at what his father said. So was everyone else in the family, and Izuku just didn't know what to do since he saw everyone's faces. Wow, I'm almost proud of you, old man, 𝗳𝗏𝗄 stated. Shouto and his brothers just laughed while Ray and 𝗵𝗃𝗁 just shook their heads. Izuku just kept his mouth shut since he didn't want to piss 𝗵𝗃𝗁 off. 𝗵𝗃𝗁 got annoyed and just glared outside of the window due to his sons laughing. I'm trying to be serious and all and I get laughed at, he grumbled. Ray just consoled him, which made him less annoyed. Time quickly passed and they soon arrived at 𝗵𝗃𝗁's home. Izuku looked at Shouto and he knew what he wanted. They both got out of the limo and said they would be back. They walked a bit down from the main street since the car couldn't go directly down the street to where 𝗵𝗃𝗁 lived. Shouto looked at the building with a questioning look. Yes, this is where he lives. He's been here for so long that he never left. Let's go see if he is inside. Izuku said to answer Shouto's question that went unasked. Izuku and Shouto opened the front door and went to another door. Izuku and Shouto opened the front door and went to another door. Izuku knew 𝗵𝗃𝗁 kept it unlocked, so he just entered. 𝗵𝗃𝗁, you here? Izuku called out and said who it was. 𝗵𝗃𝗁 soon came down the steps. What are you doing here, boy? I don't remember us having anything set up unless Toshianryo was an idiot again and forgot to tell me something. 𝗵𝗃𝗁 stated, confused on why Izuku was at his home and with someone else. Izuku just told 𝗵𝗃 that he needed to talk about some important matters that involved All Might and One for All. 𝗵𝗃 noticed that Izuku said One for All and the other boy didn't even look confused. Must have told his friend, though the question is why and what happened. 𝗵𝗃 thought. 𝗵𝗃 just pulled a chair at the table and told Izuku to sit down and start talking. Izuku sat down and 𝗵 could tell he was a bit tense. Out with it, boy. What do you need? 𝗵 stated. Izuku just took a breath and started to talk, and he went with the largest topic and was blunt about it. 𝗵𝗃, I was advised to come to see you by an old friend of yours before I left and explain some things so you would be in the loop, Izuku said, and 𝗵 was confused about who this old friend was. I no longer see 𝗬𝗵𝗃 as my 𝗵𝘃𝗲 and I've left UA. I'm going to a different country, which I won't confirm which one. 𝗬𝗵𝗃 and UA have done some things that I'm unwilling to look away from since it's compromising my education and is risking my safety. Also, 𝗬𝗵𝗃 and I no longer see each other as 𝗵𝘃𝗲 and protégé anymore. He no longer believes I'm fit to be the 9th user of One for All, which I disagree with. As such, I've decided to attend a new hero school with my best friend Shouto. Izuku stated, blunting and to the point. 𝗵𝗃, who was drinking some tea, choked on it. His eyes went wide at what he just heard. He wanted answers on what happened to drive the relationship between Izuku and Toshinori to this point for them to separate. What the hell happened at UA, and what happened that made him think you are no longer fit for the quirk? 𝗵𝗃 asked. Shouto decided to speak up at this point. For, sir, Izuku was assaulted by his teammate before the final exam even started, and during it his teammate refused to work with him at all. As such, Izuku decided to go for the win by escaping the city, but this meant abandoning his teammate who assaulted him and refused to work with him. Their opponent was 𝗬𝗵𝗃 in the final exam. Shouto stated. 𝗵's eyes widened a bit at that statement. He looked at Izuku, who was not smiling like he normally is. Izuku pulled out a letter that explains his entire past to 𝗬𝗵𝗃 and what his viewpoints were on everything and how he felt betrayed by 𝗬𝗵𝗃 just like every other teacher before. Izuku gave the letter to 𝗵𝗃 to reach. 𝗵 quickly opened it and started to read everything. About 5 minutes passed and 𝗵𝗃 was in shock. Kid, life wasn't good to you at all, 𝗵𝗃 stated, and then he remembered Izuku said an old friend recommended him to come to see 𝗵. You said someone told you to come to see me. Who was it? 𝗵𝗃 asked. Izuku looked him in the eye and didn't turn away. Nana Shimura, Izuku stated, and 𝗵 felt like he had a heart attack. Impossible, she's he started, but Izuku cut him off. Dead. Yeah, but not in One for All, she's not. The quirk passes more than power. It passes ghosts or echoes of the old users. The users knew of the events and how I was conflicted on what I was doing, and they allowed Nana, the 7th user, to speak to me in my dreams. Izuku stated. He then explained how Nana and the users agreed that 𝗬𝗵𝗃 was wrong in his judgment to criticize Izuku, and how they were not happy with the situation but understood Izuku's choice to leave and find a better education and a way to be safe. 𝗬𝗵𝗃 and UA was willing to risk his education and safety to better another student that only wished to harm him. They also encouraged it somewhat since it would put distance between Izuku and All for One, since Izuku was still too weak to fight All for One. She asked me as a favor to her personally. A personal request that I write that letter in your hand so 𝗬𝗃 had a chance to learn what he has done. So that maybe one day far in the future, if we cross paths again, that he might have a chance to reconnect with me if he sees the errors in his ways. The other users didn't agree with her request, but it was from her and I couldn't reject her. She's my predecessor who wishes for her personal protégé to try to correct his ways one day, and I can't deny her that. She's also asked me to keep you in the loop since I had no plans to stay in contact with anyone from Japan really except my mother and Todoroki's family. This way I can ask you for advice and get updates from Japan. This is all assuming if her words are correct and you are willing to keep silent about our communications and everything, since I don't want them finding me. Izuku stated. 𝗵𝗃 was silent for a few seconds as he was processing everything. Yeah, kid, of course, I'll keep silent. I'm glad I'll at least have a way to contact you about anything regarding All for One so I can warn you of them. I need to ask, but you have the right to say no. Would you be willing to tell me what country you're going to? 𝗵𝗃 said. Izuku was tense about it but relented. America, remember, I'm trusting you. 𝗵𝗃, don't inform anyone else of this. Nana trusted you and I'm playing the trust one having them into you, so don't screw me over. Izuku said, and Gran could see the other boy behind Izuku glaring with a bit of ice and fire on him in a threatening manner. Well, that kid has one loyal friend. Gran thought. 30, kid, no matter if All Might does find you. Never give one for all up unless you're on your deathbed or have found your personal protege when you're far in your hero career, understand? The quirk is yours alone and no one else is more fit than you for it. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. 𝗵𝗃 stated. It was time for the boys to go and it was time for Gran to beat the living SHT out of an old student. 𝗵𝗃 told Izuku he would be heading to UA to deliver the letter and deal with an old student. Izuku decided to give the other letter to 𝗵𝗃 as well since he was going already. Everything in our dorm rooms is being donated since it's all nothing personal and or can easily be replaced. So do you mind giving this letter to the class since they were a part of the reason I left? They never did anything to stop Bakugo or even encouraged it. Shouto's only one that saw a problem with it and I have had to stop him from going after Bakugo and getting in trouble. Izuku stated. Gran said he would and took the other letter. They all went out of the door and Gran followed them to the car. 𝗵𝗃 rolled the window down when he saw the man. 𝗵𝗃 looked at him and talked. Personally, I don't like you, but thanks for helping the kid out. I need to go deal with All Might and kick his butt now. 𝗵𝗃 said as he just walked away. Everyone in the car was confused about how an old man would kick the #1 hero's butt. Izuku and Shouto had already got in the car and it started to drive. Yeah, he can and will kick All Might's butt. All Might is terrified of him. Anytime he speaks 𝗵𝗃's name or someone mentions it, he starts to shake a bit. 𝗵𝗃 was brutal in his training method when All Might ended up under his care during his youth in UA. He was also a homeroom teacher at UA for a year. Izuku stated. Everyone's eyes and even 𝗵𝗃 were wide with shock. Didn't you train under him? Shouto asked and Izuku confirmed. Yes, I still feel the phantom pain too. This day, Izuku stated as he shuddered. Everyone didn't want to know what it felt like to be at the end of 𝗵𝗃 Fury, but it seems All Might just invoked it. Soon the car drove off and it was about another hour and a half before they arrived at the private airport. They were into a private screening area to check them in and within 10 minutes they were all standing on a tarmac area where the plane was sitting at. Hello everyone. I'm the captain and I'm told you two younger boys will be my passengers on the way back to America, correct? The captain asked as the co-captain was running through the last-minute checks. They confirmed that they were the only passengers and then the captain took their luggage and stored it. The captain had told them they would be ready to leave in about 5 minutes of doing last-minute checks, but they could all go on the plane and talk a bit instead of standing in the sun, but when it was time everyone but the two boys had to get off. As such, that is how they found themselves standing inside the private airplane, which was really good looking. Well, Dad really did send an amazing private plane to take us to America, Izuku said as he explored the plane. Well, Dad really did send an amazing private plane to take us to America, Izuku said as he explored the plane. He had found a bed area that was big enough for them both to sleep on during the flight since it would be a long 15-hour or so flight to America's East Coast. They all talked for a few minutes when Ray decided to embarrass them both. Boys, I just want to ask if there is anything romantically going on between you two. Ray asked, shocking everyone, even 𝗵𝗃. Izuku was a blushing mess. Shouto was also a mess but calmed down quickly. 14 No. God, it's not that I wouldn't mind being with him, but we see each other platonically right now. The reason we are so comfortable with each other is that we know everything about each other's demons and past. Aiza knows everything that happened in this family and I know all of his past and the things he hasn't told others, including his parents. We've helped each other overcome our demons and honestly you can't get closer to a person emotionally than what we've done for each other. Shouto stated and everyone else could understand where he was coming from. As it stands, there's nothing romantic. I will admit we've slept in the same bed but not 𝗳𝗏𝗏. It's nice to have someone we deeply trust next to us so we know we're safe and ground each other when we have problems. Izuku stated. Rei nodded her head and understood. What was surprising is when 𝗵𝗃 talked. Just be safe about it if you choose to go romantically, 𝗵𝗃 stated. Everyone was stunned since he just did a blanket approval of them both if they got together one day in the future. This stunned them all due to how he used to be in the past. 𝗵𝗃 looked at his watch and said it was time to go and that the captain should be asking them to get off any moment. They noticed the time as well and they all got up to say goodbye to each other. While Izuku and the Todorokis were on their way to the airport to show the boys off, 𝗵𝗃 was sitting on a train with 2 letters on his person. His eyes were ice cold and anyone that looked at him in the eyes shuddered. Today the symbol of peace was about to learn the fury of his old mentor and All Might had no idea what was coming for him. As the seconds went by 𝗵𝗃 only got angrier and angrier. The anger stemmed from what he read in the letter and what it talked about. 𝗵𝗃 had thought he had taught his former student on the behalf of his deceased friend far better than he did, but All Might had proven that wrong. The past of one Izuku Midoriya was a cruel and unjust past. Izuku had more than enough reason to turn to a life of crime and hatred and there would be no one to blame but society itself for what has happened to that boy. 𝗵𝗃's anger didn't stop at just All Might either. His anger went to UA and Principal Nizu for the SHT they have done. 32 The fact that an attempted murder happened and they didn't do anything about it, the fact that the brat was allowed to use his quirk far more freely than he should be able to, the fact that they kept partnering him up with his bully no his abuser made 𝗵𝗃 sick to his stomach. It's one thing for Eraserhead to have a lapse of judgment but for All Might, Nizu, and Recovery Girl who knew about One for All to all have a lapse in judgment so many times is inexcusable. They had a recording of the exam and the fact that they let an assault happen and didn't stop it violated their duties as teachers first and foremost. Then they have the ball to blame Izuku for not staying with his attacker and saving him from All Might is foolish. If it was him, 𝗵𝗃 would have done the exact same thing that Izuku did. The moment the brat attacked Izuku he was no longer an ally but a hostile enemy. They say anger and emotions pass if you give someone time. Well, not in this case since the time between his home and the school, 𝗵𝗃's anger only got larger. He was finally at UA and he checked his phone. He received a text from Izuku saying they have already taken off which was good since it meant UA couldn't stop the boy anymore. He would be out of Japan's airspace before they could do anything. 𝗵𝗃 pressed the button on the intercom. It was only getting into the later hours of the afternoon and it was closing in on night time. 𝗵𝗃 knew that the staff would likely be getting ready to leave the staff room soon but he was glad he could catch all of the idiots. Nizu's voice came over and welcomed him in as Nizu printed a pass for him to get in. 𝗵𝗃 just took the pass without saying anything and made his way into the staff area. After about 8 minutes of walking due to his short legs and his age, he arrived at the staff room and threw the door open quickly. Everyone was stunned and even Nizu was stunned at how strong 𝗵𝗃 opened the door. All Might was terrified. 𝗵𝗃 looked around and saw everyone was present but not Recovery Girl. Where's Recovery Girl at currently? He asked and Nizu said in the nurse's office. 𝗵𝗃 just told Nizu to get her in the room at once before he would talk to everyone since it involved everyone. Everyone was taken aback by the tone the old man used with Nizu. Even Nizu was shocked since 𝗵𝗃 has never been like this. Nizu made the call and after about 5 minutes Recovery Girl arrived. She entered to find the room tense and saw 𝗵𝗃. She greeted him but he just sent her a side glare which made everyone more confused. Take a seat everyone since it seems you all have earned a lesson in how to be a teacher and a hero since you have all failed so horribly. 𝗵𝗃 caught everyone's attention on what he was talking about. They all wondered what he was talking about and All Might was an idiot and opened his mouth. That was a wrong move. 𝗵𝗃 what do you mean? All Might asked and 𝗵𝗃 kicked off and landed a blow right in his non-existent stomach. This made All Might cough up blood shocking everyone that 𝗵𝗃 just attacked All Might in his skinny form. 𝗵𝗃 just stood on All Might with a foot on his face and another supporting him to put pressure on All Might's head as he yelled. You know what you did you big idiot. You all know where you screwed up and yet you dare act innocent. You dare act dumb in front of me. You are teachers for God's sake and yet. You let 𝗳𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗀𝗃 go right under your nose in your own DMN school. How dare you call yourself the #1 hero, and how dare all of you even think of teaching classes or being a hero? 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃 yelled like crazy. They were all shocked at what was said. What crimes happened that they didn't know about? Even 𝗵𝗃𝗃 didn't know what he was talking about, but he had a hunch it was connected to Izuku Midoriya and Shouto Todoroki. He decided to take a guess and get some answers. Does this have something to do with Izuku Midoriya and Shouto Todoroki, who were withdrawn from the school by 𝗵𝗃𝗃 this morning? 𝗵𝗃𝗃 asked, and everyone, including All Might, who was now off the floor, attention snapped to 𝗵𝗃𝗃 and 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃. 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃 jumped on the table and walked to 𝗵𝗃𝗃 and glared at him. Seems your damn quirk is still working. Yes. Now can you tell me what crimes you ignored this entire semester? Please don't tell me that your high-spec quirk is only good for so little that you can't figure it out. 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃 said with a snarl. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 had many thoughts going through his head. The staff and he have been talking all day trying to figure out what went wrong. The only recent thing that happened was Izuku Midoriya got scolded by Izawa for abandoning Bakugo in the exam, but that wasn't a crime. So what was it? Then it hit 𝗵𝗃𝗃. 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃 said it was going on all semester. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 started to think about what all happened this semester that involved Izuku Midoriya and maybe Shouto Todoroki. There was the incident in the battle training that was written off as a foolish student that got in over his head. The USJ happened, but nothing stood out that was a crime except the villains. The sports festival happened, and besides what was already known, nothing grand happened. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 had all of the pieces, but he was forgetting one thing. He was thinking of Izuku Midoriya as the 9th user and was forgetting the past of what he was beforehand. 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃 saw that he was having trouble. Let me give you a hint. Take away what made him the 9th and then boom, put all the parts together and you should get the answer you should have seen the entire F semester. 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃 stated. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 did as he was told and removed the one for all quirk from Izuku Midoriya, which would make him quirkless again. But what did 𝗳𝗃𝗃, did we misread the signs of Bakugo this entire time? 𝗵𝗃𝗃 thought as his eyes widened very largely. Everyone saw this and wonder what the answer was, since they didn't get the hint, but All Might and Recovery Girl was working it out when 𝗵𝗃𝗃 said the answer. We misread the signs and thought it was a rivalry, but in the entire case it was an abuser with his victim, and we kept putting the victim with the abuser to just keep getting hurt every single day. Dear God, 𝗵𝗃𝗃 thought out loud. 19, seems you got it. You forgot that Izuku Midoriya was quirkless until the entrance exam, since his quirk came in late due to being so overbearing on his body that he had to put on so much muscle to allow it to flow in his body. As such, he was quirkless from the age of 4 until the exam, meaning he was treated just like any other quirkless person in Japan, and let me remind you, that isn't good. Then someone from his middle school gets paled in the same class as him, which you saw how that was going. The quirk usage of small sparks, that was to cause fear since he did it before to the kid. The name Deku means worthless. So he was peer pressured by his classmates to accept the name once again. Then, we have the attempted murder in the battle trial when the brat ignores All Might's order and fires a blast to kill Izuku Midoriya. Then, you guys keep putting him together with his abuser each training session, where he has teamwork issues with the kid that has an ego complex and many other issues, who is the one with the teamwork issue and not Izuku, since the boy can work with anyone else. I also believe there was an attempt on the first day to harm him as well, so there is that as well. Then, all the extra wounds and injuries that Recovery Girl stated that she was not going to heal large injuries anymore after the sports festival. This drove the kid to not seek medical help for wounds from training and made him self-care when he needed a doctor. 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃 stated. He then started to breathe in a lot of air since he went on a large rant. As it looked like 𝗵𝗃𝗃 and others were about to talk, 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃 cut them off. Oh. I'm not done, so shut it. Then we come to a closer time where we had the final exam. You all put him again with his abuser and allowed the exam to keep going even after the abuser, known as Katsuki Bakugo, assaulted Izuku Midoriya on camera before the exam even started. So you had yet another crime that went unpunished to the level it should have. Then you all blame the kid and scold him for the actions he did in the exam. Of course, he was going to leave the other student. In the eyes of the law, what he did was assault, and in the hero world he would be declared an enemy combatant in the field. I myself would have done what Izuku Midoriya did, and I have decades of experience, yet you dare scold the kid for doing the right actions. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 stated, and now he was finished. Everyone was silent. No one really knew what to say. Why? Why wasn't I told he was quirkless before the exam? His training should have gone completely different instead of us letting him break his bones all the damn time. 𝗳𝗍𝗂 stated as he stood up and looked at his boss. It was in his file. His quirk registry was updated after the exam itself. You could have known if you looked at his file, 𝗵𝗃𝗃 stated. 𝗳𝗍𝗂 had to admit that was his fault for not looking deeper. He assumed the kid was just some spoiled kid that didn't train his quirk before to get it under control. I thought he was some kid that never put in any training and was trying to control his quirk. I didn't look deeper since most people get it at the age of 4. 𝗳𝗍𝗂 stated. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 did have to admit that it was kind of an error on his part, but also 𝗳𝗍𝗂. They both shared fault with that. 𝗵𝗃𝗃, you screwed up and 𝗬𝗃𝗃 screwed up. Congratulations, you lost 2 good students due to the crimes that 𝗬𝗃𝗃 allowed to happen. You do realize he could take 𝗬𝗃𝗃 to court and destroy you and even get you to shut down the school, but he didn't. He refuses to let the villains use it as a chance to destroy hero society. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 stated. He looked around the room and saw everyone was pale at all the truths they learned. 𝗳𝗏𝗃, I have a letter for you. The kid wrote it. As of now, you are no longer a 𝗵𝗃𝗃 and his student. This letter is the last words he will give you for a long time. You better learn and change by the next time fate decides you two will meet. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 stated as he threw a letter to All Might. Everyone was shocked to just learn that Izuku Midoriya was the personal student of All Might, but it made a lot of things clear with how close they were. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 also pulled out another letter. This letter goes out to 𝗬𝗃𝗃 and the 1A students. It's more of pointing out how they all want to be heroes or are heroes and stood by when they saw so many crimes going on and yet they did nothing about it. Some even encouraged it and laughed at Izuku when Bakugo did things to him. I suggest you all read it with the class and start reviewing your teaching methods, because if this is how you act across the school then the future looks like 𝗳𝗏𝗃, 𝗵𝗃𝗃 said as he threw the other letter to 𝗳𝗍𝗂. He wouldn't read it until they had all the students gathered. Then everyone heard it. All Might had tears going down his face. His eyes were wide and skin pale. They all wondered what was in that letter to get that response. Shocking, isn't it? You were so close to the boy and knew a lot about his background, yet you allowed yourself to be blind due to you being at the top. You should have known. You of all people share a massive amount of blame in this result. So I got to ask you, how does it feel to disgrace the legacy and turn your back on your protege, Toshinori? 𝗵𝗃𝗃 asked, blunting. This just made All Might grip the letter and stared back at 𝗵𝗃𝗃 since he had no answer to give, since the answer was so painful. He had failed and betrayed his protege just because of one event. He didn't even realize he said it out loud, and now he knew the boy likely held an extreme amount of distrust. Let me put it this way, 𝗍𝗏, All Might, don't look for the boy. Leave him alone. If fate dictates that you are to meet him again, then it shall be. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 stated. All Might asked if 𝗵𝗃𝗃 knew where Izuku was or how to get a hold of him. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 looked at him and without missing a beat answered. No, he gave me the letter and explained things before he left. All I can tell you is that both boys are together since they are actual rivals and push each other. They both agreed 𝗬𝗃𝗃 wasn't a safe place for them to learn in anymore and decided to seek new education places out. Though I don't know what school he is going to try for now. After he left I came right here. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 stated. Nana directed the kid to him and he wasn't going to betray the trust she and the kid put in him. Everyone put their heads down in shame since it was true. They had allowed a toxic and unsafe place for some of their students, and now 2 of their students have left. They are just grateful the students were kind enough to not destroy their names in the media, which they had full right to do so. However, if they did, the villains would use it as a chance to destroy the hero society. Soon after talking a bit more, they all decided to go to the 1A dorms. President Mike did ask what they are going to do with Katsuki Bakugo now though, and that was the $1 million question. What do they do with him now? The League of Villains were after their students and would take any chance to hit UA. If they expelled him, they would be setting him right up for the taking by the League. They decided to wait and see what he would do when the truth came out and decide from there on his punishments, since expulsion was far too risky at the moment. As they all got up to go to the dorms, 𝗵𝗃 just dashed and slammed into 𝗵𝗃𝗃 a handful of times before anyone could do anything. You deserve that for the way you acted. Do better next time, or I will keep beating the living SHT out of you every time we meet. Do you understand, Toshinori? Since I know I didn't train you to be this stupid in your Mazer's place. 𝗵𝗃 stated as he glared down at 𝗵𝗃𝗃, who just nodded. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 stepped off of him and everyone just shuddered at seeing the symbol of peace get beaten up without any real effort. It didn't matter that he wasn't in his buff form, since 𝗵𝗃𝗃 was a shaking mess. If the old man could do that, then what the hell could he do to all of them? That is the thought that went through all of their minds at that moment. Even Nizu was a bit weary, since 𝗵𝗃 wasn't taking any mercy today, and honestly wouldn't put it past 𝗵𝗃 to attack him as well now that 𝗵𝗃𝗃 was off the floor again. They all headed to the dorms. The teachers were walking towards the 1A dorms. Nizu had looked at the security system and saw that all of the students appeared to be in the dorms currently. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 was following far in the back, away from 𝗵𝗃, who would turn around and glare at him every once in a while during the walk. Everyone just felt fear at the reaction that the old man was getting out of 𝗵𝗃𝗃. After a few minutes of walking, they arrived at the 1A dorms. 1A Alliance, my butt. More like hostile combatants. 𝗵𝗃 muttered. The teachers just flinched slightly at that comment. Soon they entered the dorms and found everyone sitting in the common room area. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 had buffed up into his hero form, since none of the students knew about it. The teachers were noticed by the students within a few seconds, and they all looked confused about why they were all there. Can you all gather around? We have news about Izuku Midoriya and Shouto Todoroki, Nizu stated without his usual cheery tone, since that was one way to purchase a beating from 𝗵𝗃 right now. All the students moved over, and they also noticed 𝗵𝗃, who some recognized as being Izuku's internship. Ida pointed it out, since he knew for a fact that the man was indeed Izuku's internship boss. Hello, sir. Nice to see you again. If I remember correctly, you were Deku's hero internship, were you not? Ida stated, and 𝗵𝗃 didn't answer and just stared the boy down, since he had used the damn name Deku. 𝗵𝗃 knew it was Izuku's hero name here, but God, he hated it with a burning passion now that he learned where it came from. Nizu noticed the tension and decided to speak up. Before we get into all of the details, let's make something clear. No one is to refer to Izuku Midoriya as Deku anymore. Anyone caught will be punished, as that is a derogatory term. Nizu stated, and some brought the fact up that it was his hero name. Not anymore, damn brats, so shut up and sit down now. 𝗵𝗃 stated, and they all shut up quickly and sat down. Even Bakugo felt fear at the tone of voice with the glare. Especially with the glare that was sent his way from the old man. It has come to our attention that UA has allowed many incidents and criminal actions to take place in the 1A class without punishment being handed out or the incidents stopped. This has resulted in Izuku Midoriya and Shouto Todoroki deeming UA unfit for their continued education, and as such, they have relocated to a new school as of today. Nizu stated. Everyone in 1A eyes went wide at the fact that two of their classmates were suddenly gone and out of their classes, and it was only a day ago that they had talked to them. Ida being the person who he was asked what incidents took place. 𝗵𝗃 took the lead and started to explain everything from day one to the final exam. So we have attempted murder, illegal quirk usages, assault, verbal bullying, and I'm sure there are other crimes in there as well. This was all done by one Katsuki Bakugo, and it was all done under the disguise of the training or right in front of everyone, and they just waved it off at the damn explosive brat's attitude. 𝗵𝗃 stated. Bakugo just lashed out with his mouth and said that they were making SHT up. It was at that point that 𝗵𝗃 talked about Izuku being quirkless before and everything Bakugo did. The eyes of everyone in the class just got wider and wider as 𝗵𝗃 just kept talking. Bakugo could see the faces of everyone in his class, and he knew he was screwed. Kirishima and the others that hanged out with him all looked at him in disgust. They tried to rationalize it all away but couldn't. Finally one of them asked him if it was all true and he didn't answer, which was an answer all in itself. Then there are all of you brats that either encouraged it or just ignored it since it wasn't anything directly involving you. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 stated. Some tried to object to that accusation, then 𝗵𝗃𝗃 pulled the letter from Izuku and started to read it. Dear former classmates of 1A at UA High School, if you are reading this, then either the cleaning crew left it as instructed or I had it delivered via other means. You may have been told about Shouto's and I no longer attendance in school, and it's true. We have come to feel that UA was compromising our education and endangering our lives due to how they conducted the classes. I'm referring to the way they would pair me up with Bakugo and try to forcibly fix his issues with teamwork and his ego problems with sticking me with him since he hates me. As such, they are endangering my life since he has expressed his ability and longing to cause a massive amount of harm to me since day one of school when he attempted to assault me in the quirk test and then during the battle trial only a few days later. Then there are the issues during class where he would be allowed to use his quirk to inspire fear in me due to our past where he would bully me since I was a late bloomer and didn't get my quirk until the entrance exam. That is the reason my bones kept getting hurt due to the fact that I've only had it for a short period of time. Yet, I currently sit at top of the class with my lacking quirk control training. During this semester, Bakugo installed my old nickname that he created, which meant worthless. Now, I don't blame my old friends or others for calling me it since I'm the one that gave into peer pressure when people started to call me it. I felt like I had no choice due to my past and how he had already spread it in replace of my name as he did in our old schools. Though we do have things that I can hold against my classmates. There were times that he would scream at me and make me afraid. In moments like this, no one stood up to stop him or call him out. Shouto knew, but I kept him from doing anything since he wanted to do more than stop Bakugo. Then we have the self-proclaimed Bakugo squad that would laugh at some of these events and encourage him. Yet our homeroom teacher nor anyone else would stop him from using his quirks to create little sparks. Do you want to know why I had fear against those? It's because he would put his hand on my body and then burn my skin with his quirk. Yet no teacher ever did anything to him in the past. Nor did our homeroom teacher stop him from using his quirk in the class. The only thing missing was the bodily harm itself. Everything was the same: the teacher that did nothing, the students that laughed, and the students that looked on as it happened. Yet this is a school for heroics, so how could that be for something like this to happen? I honestly don't know, but do you know? Does anyone know why that it's always me that comes out with more bodily harm in training only against him, but I can go against Shouto or anyone else and not have wounds like I do when he spars with me? Does anyone know the fact that Recovery Girl said that she wouldn't heal me anymore if I get the major wounds due to my quirk? I know I was reckless a bit, but I was dealing with a new quirk and then dealing with my abuser as well. It got to the point that I just self-cared for myself, or had Shouto helped me since he knew all of this? None of the teachers offered to help me get my quirk under control even though the school had full knowledge that it was new to me. No, it took only 3 days with 𝗵𝗃𝗃 to learn a control method, yet I went so long at UA without being taught by a large staff on how to control my quirk. From the students, I was barely close to, and to the students, I was really close to. My question for all of you: is this how a hero school is meant to be? Is this how hero students are meant to be? Turning a blind eye to the crimes and actions that are going on in front of them. Before I end this letter, let me leave you with some advice that I learned from my internship, and these words were actually said by a villain in the middle of a battle, and they hold so much truth at this moment. Forget about yourself for a second and try saving others. Don't wield your power for your own sake. These words were stated by a villain that was a murderer. Ironic that words from a mass murder would ring truer than a lot of the actions I've dealt with in UA. UA has forgotten about saving others and has set its sight on wielding their power for their own sake. I truly hope that UA and its students will adapt and become better, so the next time they see discrimination, bullying, assault, or any other crime that happens in front of them, that they won't decide to just turn a blind eye to it since it doesn't involve them. As heroes, it's our duty to save first and foremost before anything else. Don't let others fool you and lead you to believe that it's the hero's job to only defeat and always win. Because guess what, even All Might has failed at something. Signed former classmate, Izuku Midoriya read Gran Torino as he finished reading the letter from Izuku Midoriya that was addressed to the class and the teachers. Everyone was shocked and didn't know what to say. Aizawa himself was cursing himself for being so blind and assuming that Izuku was a snot-nosed brat that never trained his quirk. Aizawa made the fatal assumption that based on Izuku's power that he never got discriminated against and was always told how good he was and allowed to walk over everyone. He had thought there was a rivalry between Katsuki Bakugo and him, but he was so wrong. Oh, so wrong. Now his former student was nowhere to be found and he didn't know if he would ever get a chance to make the wrongs right. Even All Might himself had his head down in shame at the letter. He indeed failed. He failed at so many things when he took Izuku Midoriya on as his protégé. He should have reached out to Gran Torino far before the sports festival, and now Izuku had permanent damage to his arms and hands. That knowledge that his former protégé had permanent damage due to the fact that he couldn't teach or decided to ask for help from the other teachers was on him. That was all on him. Then there was the fact that he allowed so much to go on in front of him and failed to step in when he was likely the one best fit to communicate with Izuku due to their shared identity of being quirkless before One for All. However, now he was a failure of a 𝗵𝗃𝗃 and had insulted Izuku by ever thinking he'd choose the wrong ninth wielder. As everyone was thinking of all the wrongs they had let go by and did nothing, Bakugo himself was furious for the DMN Deku putting the entire past out in the open. Then he heard the voice of the principal. Bakugo, we still need to decide what to do about you, 𝗍𝗫 stated. Bakugo just had to open his big mouth though. There's nothing to do anything about. He's not even here anymore, just like he should never have been in the first place. I still don't get how he activated a quirk so late in life. He was just a damn pebble on the side of the road and was beneath me. Bakugo stated. This earned a kick to the stomach by Gran Torino since Bakugo had let a spark out. Now listen here, you damn brat. You will stop using your damn quirk as you please since you don't have a damn license to use it. Also, he wasn't a damn pebble. If he was, you wouldn't have had so much trouble getting rid of him. Those that take so much effort are known as mountains, and guess what? You really didn't get rid of him since he chooses to go find a better education, since UA isn't the only hero school in the world. There are dozens of schools that produce amazing heroes and are ranked higher than UA across America, across the EU. There are dozens. With the level of skill he has and the determination, he will always be a better hero than you ever will be. Do you understand me, brat? Gran Torino stated as he keeps a shoe up against Bakugo's back as he had him pinned to the ground with his hands facing towards his own body so he couldn't use his quirk without hitting himself. Everyone was shocked at how fast the old man moved. They also recognized the movements that Izuku did. They realized that Izuku didn't copy Bakugo's moves but Gran Torino's movements, since he moved similar to Bakugo due to the flight capabilities. After struggling for a bit, Bakugo gave up since he couldn't throw the old man off of him. As such, Gran Torino just let go and backed away quickly in the event the brat tried anything. Bakugo just stood up and glared at the old man. Bakugo, please accompany me and Aizawa to my office since we need to have a long discussion on your placement in the hero course or what punishments we will deal out to you if you stay in it. You are luckily Izuku Midoriya isn't pressing charges which make things slightly easier on you. However, we can still get creative in what we do to you instead. 𝗍𝗫 said with a dark tone. Bakugo tensed up at the tone the principal had. He wasn't used to getting in trouble. Even here at UA he was only slightly stopped from doing what he did, and now they were coming down hard on him. All Might spoke up before everyone left. The letter is true, you can't always win. That is true even for me since I've lost battles before and it's just not talked about. I've also lost a lot personally that I wish I could have changed, yet I wasn't fast enough or I had made a mistake. Remember, we need to do better, and one day hopefully fate will make our paths cross again with Izuku Midoriya and we can try to make up for our errors. Until then we can only strive to improve to the ideals that we should have been upholding long before now. All Might stated. All of the students sat there as the teachers were now walking away. The students were devastated due to all the information they had now learned. They had failed so horribly and some of them felt disgusted with themselves. A lot of the 𝗵𝗃 squad felt really disgusted with themselves due to their pasts of being bullied, yet they became friends with one and had encouraged the bullying without realizing it. They wondered if they had become bullies themselves due to getting in UA and vowed to look over the actions they have done and become better. The others that weren't close to Izuku were disappointed in themselves. He was right and they noticed but didn't do anything. They could have but didn't do anything even though they were here to be heroes. It didn't matter that their teacher didn't do anything, it matters that they failed to do something when they are training to do something. The others were those that were close to Izuku like 𝗬𝗏𝗃𝗃 and 𝗳𝗏. For them, they felt disgusted that they never did anything and even disgusted that they called their friend that nickname even though he was clearly against using it until 𝗬𝗏𝗃𝗃 pushed the matter with a different nickname. Even if the meaning changes a bit, the past doesn't. The past was haunting Izuku every time he heard the name. 𝗳𝗏, though, he felt really disgusted since he recognized those words in the quote. Those were from the hero killer himself right as he was about to kill him when Izuku Midoriya had come saved him during the Hosu incident. 𝗳𝗏 recognized the irony that the quote that the hero killer used was so true right now, and 𝗳𝗏 felt so disgusted with himself that he ended up throwing up in the toilet when he got to his room. He vowed to do better and one day hope his former friend would take him back as a friend. That was honestly the only thing they could all hope for. They could only hope that the forgiveness in Izuku Midoriya hadn't run out for them and that he had some ounce of mercy left inside of him if they ever met again. The teachers slowly walked back to the main building. It was time to deal with Bakugo, who has been silent this entire time. Though they did notice his teeth shut tight and his hands clenched as he just stared forward. All Might himself was far in the back and had separated from the other staff and went off onto a separate path. 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃 noticed and decided to follow his old student and see what was up. After a few minutes, 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃 found All Might, who was now sitting in his skinny form on a bench on one of the walkways. "You know you screwed up big time, don't you?" 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃 stated as he walked up. All Might flinched at the voice since he thought he was going to get another beating. "I'm not going to hit you this time," 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃 stated as he got onto the bench and sat down. They sat there and looked at the sun setting on the horizon. It would be dark soon and they have learned so many things today that had changed their world. "I don't know if I can make up for the massive amount of screws I've done, and then there is also the vision that Sir Night-Eye saw. I'm afraid I won't ever see young Midoriya again and get the chance to make up for everything and hopefully be a figure in his life again," All Might stated. 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃 nodded his head. That was indeed true, but that was also a part of the problem. "That's true, but that right there is a part of the problem. You never gave him a lot of information about yourself. Did you know until I told him during the internship he didn't know your true name? Yet you were MSTR and student for so long. Let's not even forget the point that you didn't let him tell anyone that he desired about One for All. I get not telling everyone and anyone, but he deserved to tell at least one or two people he believed he was really close to and wouldn't betray him. Though it turns out it was good he didn't tell anyone in this class about One for All. Izuku didn't tell Bakugo about the quirk and how it was borrowed in this. So you better fight really strong and not give up on the day that Sir Night-Eye's vision arrives. On that day you need to remember Izuku and all your failures and then push forward, since you need to do better by your former protege. Do you understand? Nana isn't going to be happy if you don't at least make an attempt to reconnect. 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃. All Might nodded his head and got up to go to the staff room to see how everyone was doing. He wasn't going into the meeting with Bakugo since his form didn't have much left for the day. As they were walking, All Might talked. "So One for All passes echoes of the past users as well. To think that Nana is helping me fix my SHT from beyond the grave," All Might muttered as they walked. 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃 just hummed as they walked towards the staff room. "Indeed, you are lucky that she asked the personal request of hers, and Izuku wasn't willing to decline her due to her being a predecessor," and how he described her look when she asked that request. "She wanted you to have one more chance to fix what you screwed up, since the letter was her idea that she got Izuku to agree to," 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃 stated. Soon they arrived back at the staff room and 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃 enjoyed the feeling that he got when all of the staff flinched with his arrival. While they were all doing what they were doing in the staff room, Aizawa, Mizu, and Bakugo were in the principal's office. Everyone was sitting down as 𝗵𝗃 had already placed a call to Bakugo's parents before they even left to the Class 1A dorms, so they were already on their way. The moment they had sat down, 𝗵𝗃 was alerted that they were at the front gates requesting entrance. 𝗵𝗃's message to them was that something major had happened that involved their son and they were needed at the school at once. As such, after about 3 more minutes his parents walked in and Bakugo tensed up since he knew this was looking worse and worse for him. The problem was he didn't understand why he was getting in trouble when they never did anything about it before, and in his past schools, the teachers praised it. However, deep down he knew he f up, but his mind didn't let him admit it. "Welcome, Mr. and Mrs. Bakugo. I wish today was going to be an enjoyable conversation, but it isn't going to be," 𝗵𝗃 stated as Bakugo's parents walked into the room and sat down. They didn't like the feeling that they were getting for this meeting and looked at their son, who had his head down and hands gripped tightly on the arms of the chair. "What exactly happened?" asked Bakugo's father. 𝗵𝗃 finished sipping some of the tea before setting it down. He looked at them in the eye and started talking. "It had come to our attention due to our own failure and educational teachers and authority figures in Katsuki Bakugo's life that he has been allowed to commit a numerous amount of crimes and never be punished for them. These crimes range from destruction of property, physical bullying, verbally bullying, discrimination, assault, illegal quirk usage, suicide baiting, and possibly attempted murder," 𝗵𝗃 stated. The moment those words left 𝗵𝗃's mouth, Bakugo's mother tried to deny that her son did any of that, while the father was just sitting there in shock. "What has made you think that my son has done any of that? Who's claiming as such?" she asked. 𝗵𝗃 nodded his head. He could understand having that large of a crime list presented would invoke such a reaction. "The one claiming as such is Izuku Midoriya, who is the victim of all said crimes," 𝗵𝗃 stated. This shut them up quickly, since they knew Izuku Midoriya. They knew he wouldn't just lie about something like this, but it still was strong to wrap their heads around it. They asked where he was so they could ask him about it, which 𝗵𝗃 shook his head and they were confused. "At this time we have no information regarding Izuku Midoriya's current whereabouts. He and another student have disappeared off the face of the earth and they hid their tracks quite well. I'm unable to locate them. All we know is that 𝗵𝗃 Midoriya no longer has custody of her son, and it was transferred to Hisashi Midoriya, who granted 𝗳𝗲𝗏 the right to pull Izuku Midoriya out of UA when he pulled Shouto Todoroki out of the school. As such, we are unable to proceed with a lot of this, but there was still a list of things that the Bakugo committed here in UA that we can deal with, though I admit we misread the situation and thought of it as a rivalry between the two when in fact it was an abuser and his victim. Bakugo would always create small sparks in his hand, which, based on a letter that Izuku Midoriya left the class, is a fear tactic that Bakugo would use, since he would use his quirk on Izuku Midoriya's skin to burn him in his previous schools, and the teachers never did anything about it or blamed Izuku Midoriya for starting a fight," 𝗵𝗃 stated. Both of the parents and even Bakugo himself attention snapped at the fact that no one knew where Izuku Midoriya was, nor did 𝗵𝗃 Midoriya have custody of her son anymore. They wondered if something happened to 𝗵𝗃 Midoriya. If you are wondering if 𝗵𝗃 Midoriya is dead, then she is in fact alive. She just no longer has custody of her son, which happened yesterday, which was the same time that both students left the school and never returned. They claimed an emergency and the families reported that they wouldn't be returning. We learned of the custody transfer to Hisashi Midoriya today when 𝗳𝗏𝗏 came to pull both students out," 𝗵𝗃 stated. They were glad she was alive and well, but still wondered how she lost custody. "You said he did more than the quirk usage. What else did he do while at UA?" Bakugo's father asked. 𝗵𝗃 nodded his head and pulled up video footage of the first day's attempt at assault. "We stopped this and he was warned. However, we foolishly lacked dealing out punishment against him on his later cases, since we read everything about the situation wrong, and this created an unsafe environment for Izuku Midoriya," 𝗵𝗃 stated as he pulled up the footage of the battle trial where Bakugo ignored the order and blew up the building. His parents were horrified and asked why they weren't told about that day. 𝗵𝗃 stated that All Might had failed to do proper documentation, which was UA's fault, and it didn't get recorded properly, so their internal system to deal with such an issue failed on dealing with it. They had just let it off as a warning and thought it was a reckless mistake of a child, but in the context of everything they learned now, it looks completely different from the new viewpoint. Bakugo's parents couldn't dispute it, they knew they couldn't since they just listened to the footage themselves. Then 𝗍𝗂 brought up small footage of all the times Bakugo yelled at Izuku and intimidated him. I admit these are our failures of not stopping him. It was again brushed off as his personality and them having a rivalry between them when in fact it was an abuser keeping control of his victim through fear and intimidation tactics. 𝗍𝗂 stated. He then typed a bit more and then another video came up. Again, I have no excuse for this failure since 𝗬𝗧 saw it and did nothing. This was the day of the final exam where Bakugo assaulted Izuku Midoriya and used his quirk to do it. The teacher in the control room should have ended their exam right at that moment since the exam hadn't even started yet and Bakugo used his quirk to assault another student. However, it didn't happen, which led to the results in the exam. Izuku Midoriya hit his limit since Bakugo refused to cooperate and Izuku Midoriya escaped out of the gate, ending the exam in their win. He however was scolded by All Might and Izawa aka Eraserhead, the homeroom teacher. This unfairly blamed the victim in this event and pushed Izuku Midoriya over the line, which resulted in him removing himself from the school and with Shouto Todoroki following him since he was the only one to notice everything. However, Izuku Midoriya kept Todoroki from doing anything since, in the letter he left, Shouto Todoroki would have done more than just called Bakugo out on it. As such, Izuku Midoriya didn't want Shouto Todoroki to get in trouble. 𝗍𝗂 stated. 𝗍𝗂 asked them if they had any questions so far and they just slowly shook their heads. They were still stunned. Bakugo himself was a bit pale as his thoughts were going so fast. He was trying to deny in his own mind that he wasn't an abuser, that he was a hero, but a small voice that sounded so much like Izuku Midoriya from the age of 4 was calling him out on his bullshit thoughts. At this point, his ability to keep denying it was weakening. Tears fell from his eyes without any sound. As it stands, we are unable to go after Bakugo for the things he did before 𝗬𝗧 due to no victim being present, nor does Izuku Midoriya have custody of Izuku Midoriya, so she can't push forward with charges if she wanted to. We're unable to find contact information, nor do we have any for Hisashi Midoriya. This however doesn't mean he is walking away free. He still did a lot of things during 𝗬𝗧 and we ourselves share blame for some of it. As such, it has been debated on whether or not to expel Bakugo, which presents a problem due to the League of Villains taking an interest in his class. We feel as if we did that we would be throwing him to the wolves and they would try to turn him into a villain. 𝗍𝗂 stated, and this invoked a reaction out of Bakugo and he cried out that he would never go to their side no matter what. It was at that point they all noticed his face was full of tears. So he has some form of guilt inside. It's just buried so deeply behind all the anger and ego that it only made an appearance after being smacked in the face with everything. Might be able to work with this somewhat. 𝗍𝗂 thought as his plans shifted slightly. As that maybe you still need to be punished. You've done so much harm that the question now is if you can even be a hero and be redeemed. Your anger and ego issues that we have let go of are a problem that needs to be dealt with. You lack empathy for those less fortunate than you, as shown by your treatment of Izuku Midoriya. As such, we have to question, if you found a quirkless person in the line of duty, then would you save them or let them die? These are the type of problems we are faced with. 𝗍𝗂 stated. Everyone could only nod their heads as Bakugo just kept silent and looked at his principal. As it stands, if Bakugo is to stay in the 𝗬𝗧 hero course, then he will be required to wear quirk-canceling wristbands that negate his quirk. Only a staff person will be able to activate or deactivate them. Also, he will be forced to do most of his training quirkless for some time, and he will need to make up any quirk training after school on his own time until we feel he won't abuse his quirk. He will also be required to attend anger management and therapy for the remaining time he is at 𝗬𝗧, and only once he is cleared by them can the cuffs come off for good. Though they can go back on at any time we wish if we feel they are needed. In addition to this, we will be requiring community service. He will be paired with a teacher that is willing to do it and will be required to go to quirkless orphanages and volunteer there, since the government sadly underfunds them quite a lot due to quirkist beliefs. As such, his service will be of great value, but a teacher will be present for a long time until he is deemed able to do it by himself. This volunteer work will continue until he graduates from 𝗬𝗧 if he makes it that long. Also, during the next semester, he will serve 1 month of after-school detention cleaning up the school for 1 hour each day. Then there will also be black marks on his recorded for UA and his hero license if he is able to stick around and obtain one, since there is no hiding this. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 stated. He also stated that they may change the terms and conditions of his contained enrollment whenever they wished if he isn't improving or fall back to old behaviors, since they wouldn't be allowing this behavior to keep going on anymore. The parents of Bakugo could only nod their heads while Bakugo himself was silent. Then 𝗵𝗃𝗃 remembered the summer camp. UA has a summer training camp going on. He will still attend this. However, he will sleep in the room with the teachers. He will be required to wear a GPS device during the camp. He will be required to wear the quirk cancelling bracelets during all other times except when the camp starts. This camp will be focused on training their quirks. As such, we won't require him to wear them, but they will be on hand and he will be placed in them if he is seen threatening someone with his quirk or threatening someone at all. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 stated. They agreed and signed some paperwork recognizing all of this punishment and the fact that UA had the right to kick him out any moment they wished to. The paperwork also stated that UA was allowed to inform the other students of these punishments since they knew there would be questions due to all of these events. It was also decided that Bakugo would return to his parents' home for the next 2 weeks before the camp started, since tensions in the dorm rooms will be quite high since everyone learned about his past. The Bakugos agreed since they wanted to have a long conversation with their son anyway, and this would provide them the time to do so. Though they knew they needed to let everything sink in first and gather their thoughts before they had the conversation. After they all left, it left 𝗵𝗃𝗃 and Izuku in the room. Izuku looked at his boss and asked why he didn't just get rid of the boy or drop him to general education. A handful of reasons. I hate the boy, yes, but we also must admit that we screwed up and not shift all blame on him instead. We are just like his old teachers that always praised his actions and didn't stop them. As such, I'm recognizing the fact that we played a part in his education and failures just as much as he did. It would be a bit different if Izuku Midoriya was still here, but he can't expel him due to the villains watching this class, and dropping him down to general education doesn't really teach him much, and again we played a part in his failure for never correcting him. Another reason is the fact that I think deep buried beneath everything he feels some form of guilt, but only time will tell if those tears were from guilt buried deep inside or just from him getting punished. If they are from guilt, then just maybe he can be changed and redeemed. As Izuku Midoriya stated in his letter, forget about yourself for a second and try saving others. Don't wield your power for your own sake, and I think this is a good chance to put that quote into practice, though it's ironic those words are from Stain when he attempted to murder Ida and Izuku saved him. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 stated. Izuku rolled his eyes at that quote. That entire mess with Stain was troublesome. Izuku just went with what his boss had decided, even though he wanted to get rid of the brat a bit. However, his boss was right. UA and he himself had failed Izuku Midoriya by never stopping Bakugo. They also somewhat failed Bakugo by not correcting the behavior installed in him from the old schools. They should have done a far better job and had forgotten about their teaching duties. I think it would be good for all of us on staff to take classes again on recognizing signs of abuse and those types of things, wouldn't you agree, Izuku? 𝗵𝗃𝗃 stated, and Izuku could only agree since he was right. They had to do better, they couldn't let another failure happen as it did to Izuku Midoriya.